Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to another session of Disorder in the Court. We are on day 2 of James CRUMBLEY's trial. He is the father of the Oxford shooter. Day 2 is already underway in Michigan. We are starting our stream a little bit later so that we can fast forward through the dead times. I noticed that the gentleman from yesterday is on the stand being cross-examined. He is the detective who is testifying to the digital forensics, and he's getting cross-examined by James CRUMBLEY's attorney. Welcome in. Please remember to hit the thumbs up. And I hope this stream finds you well. Thank you for being here. I'm going to go ahead and I have uploaded a few new clips to entertain you with in between segments and things like that. So with that, let's get going. I'm going to hit play, and we shall start watching this trial unfold. One moment, please. Here we go.
Thank you for being prompt. I want you to know that none of us slept in and we weren't sitting around drinking coffee, so we knew you were here and we're conscious of that. And so we're going to continue. Mr. Bobrovsky, Mr. Lieutenant Sergeant Captain, could you raise your right hand? You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is a true self to that?
Yes, ma'am.
Great, you can be seated, and would you then state your name for the record and spell your first and last name, please?
Edward Wogrowski, E-D-W-A-R-D, last name W-A-G-R-O-W-S-K-I.
Listen.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, how are you?
Good, how are you, ma'am?
I'm well, thank you. I may or may not use the screen, so I might bring up a paper exhibit to you if I need to.
Yeah, this one doesn't appear to
Yeah,
be,
let me
it's
stop you for a
something's
second.
going on there.
The issue I mentioned to you a minute ago. This
Morning,
screen is
Donnie.
flashing.
You know what, Your Honor, why don't you turn it off? I have the exhibits printed out, so if I need
Okay.
Mr. Wogrowski to look at it, I can
Happy
walk around.
Women's Day.
All right. No, okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Wogrowski, in November of 2021, you were employed by the Oakland County Sheriff's Office,
Yes, that's correct.
and you were employed in their computer crimes.
My goodness, she speaks loud and fast. Woo-wee. Okie dokie. Loud and fast. It's a national holiday and a day off. Wow, you guys are more progressive than we are in that regard.
Division.
Correct.
You testified yesterday that the main objective of your position was to obtain evidence for criminal prosecutions.
I'm sorry, main objective
Of your position was to obtain evidence against someone accused of a crime.
on that day of November 30th,
No, as your role with the Computer Crimes Division.
we were looking for evidence if a crime was committed, yes,
And you reviewed electronics,
correct,
social media accounts,
that's correct,
other similar sources of electronic data,
correct.
and the goal was to obtain evidence against a person accused of a crime. Is that fair?
Attempting to see if a crime was committed, correct.
Your goal was not to obtain any exculpatory information that would clear someone from a crime. You were looking to see if somebody committed a crime. Is that correct?
That's not true. No, if we find evidence like that, obviously it would be relevant to look further into that, yes.
And you did the same thing in this case. You reviewed the electronics, the social media accounts, and other sources of electronic data.
Correct,
You reviewed cell phones that belonged to James CRUMBLEY.
that's correct,
You identified that there were 3 cell phones, if I recall correctly, from the prosecution's PowerPoint.
correct,
2 of them had the same phone number.
that is correct,
So there were 2 Android phones that had the same phone number.
correct,
And then there was a 3rd phone, which you called a burner phone. Or I'm sorry, excuse me. The prosecution called it a burner phone and you agreed.
correct,
That's a phone that you buy at, I think you said Walmart or Meijer or a store like that, a track phone, something along those lines.
Correct, yes, something that's, you can just buy and activate yourself.
And if you know, James Crumbley and his wife were told to get a second phone because they gave their phones to the police that day.
I was not told that, no.
You're not aware if that happened or
I'm
not?
not aware of that happening, no.
While you were in the process of obtaining surveillance footage, you were not aware of the identity of the shooter at Oxford High School.
Not immediately.
And at that point, you don't recall anyone at that point, meaning while you were reviewing the footage at the school, you don't recall anyone saying, oh, it's so-and-so, until at some point later.
Later, within, it was probably, I'd say 25, maybe 30 minutes. We were looking at the video and then someone said his name.
Okay. So, and I'm not going to ask you to say his name. The judge has made orders regarding that, but it wasn't initially anyone at the school was like, we know who it was this person. Is that accurate?
I believe the person was identified by the deputies that took him into custody, but that wasn't related to us. We were I was in the security room at whatever time it was, and we were just looking for the person that came out with a black zipped up hoodie on.
Okay. For Exhibit 61, and if you need me to pull the exhibit for you, I will.
Yes,
I'll tell you what it is. Exhibit 61 is a Facebook conversation between James Crumbley.
Yes, this is cross-examination. And I don't know if you remember from the Jennifer Crumbley trial. Jennifer Crumbley's attorney was very diva-ish. She was a total diva. And this is her law partner. And this law partner doesn't come across as much of a diva, but she's really aggressive and she's very loud. And she's, I don't know how she's coming across to the jury, but she's almost starting out in the weeds with this whole burner number stuff and, burner phones and stuff like that. And I don't know, she comes across super combative in my view. I don't know. But it doesn't seem like this one makes herself as much of the story, but we'll see.
Crumbley and his wife. Did you want to look at it?
Yes, please.
Okay. May I approach, Your Honor?
Sure.
Do you recall reviewing that yesterday?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And that exchange is about James Crumbley's son.
Correct.
You don't know the context of the messages, is that fair?
The context of what was being said, the words speak for them. I don't understand.
Right, the words speak for themselves, right? You know what's on the page.
Correct.
You don't know anything beyond what's on that page.
That's correct.
You talked about texts. May I approach again, Your Honor, to get the exhibit?
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Rodrowski. You talked yesterday about text messages between Mr. Crumbley's son and his friend.
Correct.
You talked about the amount of text messages that there were.
That's correct.
20,000 texts in 11 months, I believe is what you said.
Yes.
Now, are you familiar with how often teenagers text each other?
I have two of my own, so yes.
You know that teenagers text a lot?
Yes, they do.
Young people text a lot?
I'm sorry, what?
Young people text
Young
a lot?
Yes.
You don't know whether or not 20,000 texts is an abnormal amount of text between two teenage friends, or if it's an abnormal amount. Is that fair?
No, I've done teenage cell phones before, and that 20,000 is a lot for that time span.
In April 4th of 2021, you identified a text message between Mr. Crumbley's son and his friend, claiming that his dad told him, his dad being James Crumbley, told him to suck it up and gave him pills. Do you recall reviewing that text yesterday?
Yes.
Now, in that text, you don't know what Mr. Crumbley's son was talking about, that his dad told him to suck up. Is that fair?
Because I believe he told that he was not feeling well, or if you have the exhibit, I can look at it. I thought there was more context to it prior to suck it up, but then Toll just handed him some pills.
Right. You don't know what the pills were?
I don't know.
Could have been Tylenol.
They talked about Xanax before James and his wife did.
Not in that communication, correct?
No,
The one on April 4th of 2021.
correct.
There was also a talk about melatonin.
Yes, there was.
So it's fair to say that you don't know what necessarily was being discussed between Mr. Crumbly's son and his friend on April 4th of 2021.
Again, I thought there was more context before the suck it up, but I don't know exactly what they were.
Let me see if I can pull that. I'll pull the exhibit and we'll come back to it.
Okay.
And the same thing on April 5th of 2021 with the friends. You don't know what the context of the conversation was. You just know what you're reading on a page. Is that fair?
What were they talking about on April 5th?
We'll pull that exhibit and I'll come back to
Okay.
it too. I was gonna do it on the screen, but it's not working
You can
today.
do it on the screen if you want. This one was flashing, but we can try it.
It's okay, Judge. We'll move on.
I think you can probably see it from either one of these angles anyway.
You talked about in exhibit 70 and 71, and I will pull those for you right now. Well, one is it's a placeholder because it was a video, if you recall.
Oh,
May I
yes.
approach, Your Honor?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's not just the amount, it's the amount within the period of time. It was just a number of weeks. If I recall correctly, it was like within like a 3-month period or something like that, which was a fairly short amount of time to have 20,000 text messages.
Exhibit 70 and 71 were a video sent from Mr. Crumbly's son to his friend, correct?
Correct.
And that was a video at 9:31 p.m.
That's correct.
on August 19th of 2021.
Correct.
We saw the video yesterday. It was of Mr. Crumbly's son handling a firearm.
Correct.
You hear the clicking. You hear clicking in the video, if you recall.
After you loaded the magazine into it, yes.
You don't hear any voices.
No.
No other sounds.
No.
In Exhibit 74, you identified that that was a GPS location showing that James Crumbly was at the home
Correct.
at the time that this, or around the time that this video was taken.
That's correct.
Now, from the video that we saw, you don't know if James Crumbly is standing next to his son, correct?
No, I do not.
You don't know if he was standing across from his son, correct?
I do not.
You don't know if he was in a different room, had no idea that his son was handling the firearm, is that correct?
I can't say that because when you rack around into a gun, that slide going forward makes a loud noise. And in a small house, you'd probably hear it.
Probably, but you don't know.
For sure, with him, no, I don't. But it's
And you
likely.
don't know just by looking at that exhibit what the surrounding circumstances are of that video, is that fair?
What was going on around it outside the video? No, I do not.
You know what that video shows.
Correct.
And that video shows Mr. Crumbly's son handling a firearm and loading a magazine into it, is that correct?
Correct.
Exhibit 72 and 73 are also, if you'd like to look at them, there was also a text message between Mr. Crumbly's son and his friend. Again, it's another placeholder because it was a video. May I approach, Your Honor?
Sure.
Thank you. And that was a video sent to Mr. Crumbly's son's friend at 8/20/21
Correct.
at approximately 12:30 a.m.
That's correct.
In the text, after the video was being sent, Mr. Crumbly's son said to his friend that his dad left a gun out.
Correct.
You don't know if that's true. Is that fair?
I mean, I don't know why he would lie to his friend that he talks to all the time.
You don't know if it's true, correct?
From this, it doesn't say that it's true or not, but I don't know why he would lie.
The words on the page are the words on the page. Is that
That's
accurate?
correct.
You can't go back in time and get the answer, correct? You can't go back to August 20th of 2021 and figure out were you telling the truth that day?
Go back to that day? No, I mean,
Correct.
you could ask the person that sent the text.
Right.
I mean, how else would he get his
Exhibit 76 shows that James Crumbly was at the home at that date and time. May I approach again, Brandon? Thank you. Exhibit 76 is again another GPS location showing that James Crumbly was at the home on August 20th of 2021 at 12:30 a.m.
Correct.
And again, in the video that was shown, you can hear the clicking sound. I'm sorry, this was the loading of the magazine.
That's correct.
The other
yes.
one was something else.
And just, yes, recorded it.
Exhibit 72 and 73 is Mr. Crumbly's son loading the magazine into the firearm,
Correct.
and you hear that,
Yes,
and you see it on the video.
correct.
You can hear kind of like a whirring, maybe like a fan or something in the background, if you recall.
I don't recall that, but okay.
You don't recall hearing voices?
Anybody talking at the time?
Correct.
No.
No other sounds other than the loading of the magazine.
And the slide going forward?
And again, you don't know whether James Crumbley was standing there or not.
Correct, I do not.
You don't know if James Crumbley was in another room
The GPS says he was in the vicinity
at
of
the
the house.
residence, correct?
Yes.
You don't know if he was maybe standing outside. You don't know, is my point.
I don't, the video is just limits to the gun, correct, but the GPS puts him at the house at 12:30 at night.
If you were to say, well, this is what I think, and you said that similar to some questions a little bit earlier, well, the sound of the slide moving forward is loud and you would hear it in a house that size, that's an assumption that you're making, correct?
I've loaded a gun several times and it does make a loud noise. Like,
You don't know
You
whether
would
or
know
not
what's
anyone
happening.
is, I'm sorry, I interrupted
no,
you.
it's okay. You would know what's happening. And I mean, if you have a house that's large on the second floor, then you probably wouldn't. But in a smaller house, it does, you get metal banging together. It makes a loud sound.
You don't know, based on those exhibits that have been admitted, whether or not James Crumbley heard that sound.
Whether he heard it, no.
You don't know whether or not he was aware of it.
No.
You don't know if he was aware of it and standing right there.
Correct.
You don't know.
I know the GPS puts him at the house.
Exhibit 79 was a chain of text messages. May I approach, Your Honor?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is a chain of text messages between James Crumbley and his son's friend's father. Do you recall reviewing that yesterday?
Correct, yes.
James Crumbley's son's friend's father.
Yes, I want to, yep, yes.
You reviewed the text during your investigation in this case.
Correct,
You looked at them yesterday.
that's correct.
This is the friend that Mr. Crumbley's son texted with so much, the 20,000 texts.
That is correct.
Mr. Crumbley was checking in on his son's friend. If you, and you
Yes,
can look.
correct, yep.
Okay.
That's correct.
He was concerned because it had been brought to his attention by his son that he hadn't heard from his friend, if you recall.
Yes, correct.
If you recall from the text messages, the son's friend's father asked Mr. Crumbley not to say anything about the whereabouts of his son.
Until he went to the hospital?
Correct.
Correct, yes,
And he said, wait and let's see how my son wants to handle it.
correct.
In the conversation at that point between Mr. Crumbley and his son's friend's father, there was no expression, if you recall from reviewing the exhibit, there was no expression of mutual concern about Mr. Crumbley's son or sharing any information like, yeah, my son's been having a hard time. Or there was nothing like that in that exhibit. And you can look through the pages that you have.
No, there was not.
On November 30th of 2021, in that same text thread, the friend's father texted Mr. Crumbley and said that he was praying that his son made it home okay.
On what, in here?
Yes, November 30th of 2021.
Correct, yes,
And that was after the shooting at the high school.
that's correct.
So this friend, the father of this friend that Mr. Crumbley's son had texted with so much, 20,000 texts that they had talked about, his own son had mental health issues, we see from the text. Even he did not suspect that Mr. Crumbley's son could have been the person responsible.
So this is speculation, as counsel pointed out, this witness can testify. Thank you.
Assistant.
May I approach?
Yeah, that's a big leap.
Thank you.
You talked a little bit yesterday about cache data. You said that cache data is saved after a person views something on their device.
Correct.
You went through exhibits 82 through 86.
He knows how to say
Which I can
cash.
pull if you'd like, but I'll just remind you, they were photos of a screenshot that Mr. Crumbley's son had taken of a screenshot of a handgun that was for sale,
Correct.
a 9mm handgun. And then the exhibits were also the data behind that showing that the images were stored in both Mr. Crumbley's son's cache data and Mr. Crumbley's cache data.
That's correct.
Did you want to review them again?
I would please,
Okay.
yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Sure.
This is 82 through 86.
Yep, that's right, Blue.
Okay.
Do you want to look at them? Just in
Just in
case you need
case,
them?
yes,
Sure.
yes, thank you.
So the screenshot was sent by Mr. Crumbley's son to Mr. Crumbley.
Sent to it by,
Mr. Crumbly's son to Mr. Crumbly.
correct, yes,
The screenshot itself was taken by Mr. Crumbly's son.
correct.
Both of them, it appears from these exhibits, deleted the screenshot from their messages.
Correct.
People delete messages, right?
Yes, I do, yes.
You do?
Sure,
For any number of reasons.
correct,
Not necessarily because you're trying to hide anything.
correct.
In fact, there's also a way that you can delete the message and then also clear that cache so that whatever you're deleting is permanently erased from your phone, right?
It's possible, yes.
And if that happens, then you wouldn't have found anything in the cache data, correct?
Probably not, correct.
So it's fair to say that deleting a screenshot or a message is not necessarily, there's nothing wrong with it, right?
There's, again, speculation, bless you, speculations, that kind of questions for the jury to answer.
That was a loud.
Your Honor, what I'm asking is if just deleting a message is wrong.
Well, you mean morally, legally, professionally, what do you?
All of them?
He's here to testify as to what he was able to extract from devices.
You
So
should be asking his opinion. So, wouldn't you be asking his opinion?
I mean, he said he himself deletes things and he doesn't do it because he's doing anything wrong, trying to hide anything.
Right, I mean, the witness was responding to counsel's question in a conversational tone. He's not, he can't provide opinions on why somebody might delete things or why not. He can testify.
Officer's not on trial.
Thank you, Judge.
In this instance, you did not see that anyone attempted to clear the cache data or anything like that from what you have in front of you.
The fact that it's there tells me that it didn't happen.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro
Sure.
Thank you. We know that on June 26th of 2021, James Crumbley went to a firearms store where he bought a 6-hour 9mm handgun. And you talked a little bit about that yesterday, correct?
Correct.
What did I say? June. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
November 26th
Yeah,
of
I knew what you meant.
2021.
Yeah,
There's been no dispute that James Crumbley bought a handgun on November 26th of 2021, to your knowledge.
correct.
Exhibit 95 is an Instagram post made by Mr. Crumbley's son about the 6-hour handgun that was purchased by Mr. Crumbley earlier that day.
Correct.
Would you like to review Exhibit 95 again?
Please.
May I approach your Honor?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In that post, Mr. Crumbley's son claims that the 6-hour is his handgun. In the post made by Mr. Crumbley's son in Exhibit
Correct,
95.
yes. I didn't hear something, sorry.
That's okay. He posted photos.
Correct.
Hey, Chopper.
And again, from what you have in that exhibit, you don't know anything about what's going on outside of the frame of that photo other than what's in that photo. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you know that based on Exhibit 88, which is a GPS location, that Mr. Crumbley was at or near his house around the time that his son took and posted those photos. And if you'd like to see Exhibit 88, I can give it to you.
Please, I always, yes, thank you
May
very
I
much.
approach your Honor?
Sure.
I'd like to know that too, Chopper.
So reviewing Exhibit 88, you would agree that that exhibit shows that Mr. Crumbley was at or near his home at the time that, and if you need 95 back, I can give it to you, at the time that the post was made.
That's correct.
May I approach?
Sure.
Exhibit 92 is Cellbrite data showing that Mr. Crumbley follows, Mr. Crumbley's social media account follows his son's social media account. Would you like to review that?
I'm good with that.
You're good with this?
Yes.
Okay. So you agree that that's what that shows?
Correct.
It doesn't show whether or not they interact. Exhibit 92 doesn't show whether or not they interact on social media. Is that accurate?
That particular, no, it does not.
Correct. Exhibit 92 doesn't show whether or not Mr. Crumbley saw any of his son's social media posts. Is that correct?
It would not indicate that, no.
Exhibit 96 is a video that was found on Mr. Crumbley's son's phone at on November 26, 2021 at 6:39 p.m. And again, it's a placeholder, but if you recall, it's a video of the phone camera looking down the barrel of a firearm.
Yes,
You do not see in that video, if you recall, you don't recall seeing a round in the chamber, correct? You
No,
didn't see
you
a
saw-
brass.
you saw the firing pin.
the firing pin, which means
down the
that
barrel,
there's nothing there.
correct.
You do not know from that video if Mr. Crumbley's son is holding the firearm in front of him with his camera, or if it's like this, or you don't know what's going on. You just know what that video shows, and it's the barrel of the firearm.
Correct.
Exhibit 98 is a GPS location showing that Mr. Crumbley was at the home at the time that this video was taken. Did you want to look at Exhibit 98?
No, I'm good. I remember that one.
And you would agree that Exhibit 98 shows that Mr. Crumbley was at the home.
Correct.
And again, you don't know whether Mr. Crumbley was aware that his son was handling the firearm this way, correct?
That's correct.
Exhibits 100 and 101 are similar photos. If you recall, they are social media posts by both Mr. Crumbley's son and Mr. Crumbley's wife. If you would like to review them.
Please.
Any approach, Your Honor?
Sure.
Both
Thank you.
100 and 101.
You can continue to approach it.
Thank you, Your Honor.
It isn't open to me, but it's-
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, so those are posts by Mr. Crumbley's wife and his son, and they're shooting range targets.
Correct.
And it looks like they were shooting range targets that they used based on the posts.
Based on, yes,
There's nothing illegal or improper to your knowledge about taking your child to the shooting range, correct?
that's correct.
And letting them shoot at a target.
Correct.
There's nothing illegal and improper to your knowledge about posting photos of the target that you used.
Correct.
Exhibits 104 through 107 are from November 27th of 2021, showing that James Crumbley was doing DoorDash deliveries. Do you recall reviewing those?
Yes, I do.
Do you need to see them?
Just in case, yes, please.
Okay.
I think she's going in the
104,
direction I thought,
107.
which is, this is just a normal family. They're just normal. You could get accused too if your parents.
Now, those deliveries are over a period of time.
Correct.
And we know that James Crumbley worked for DoorDash. We talked about that yesterday.
Correct.
It hasn't been disputed to your knowledge.
No,
DoorDash was his job at the time.
that's correct.
There's nothing wrong with working at DoorDash, correct?
No.
There's nothing wrong with leaving your 15-year-old son at home while you're working for DoorDash.
Correct.
In and of itself, there's nothing wrong with that.
Correct.
And when you were looking at exhibits yesterday, and just if you recall, you don't recall there being any posts about or exhibits about concerning behavior or concerning text messages or videos or anything like that during the hours from exhibits 104 to 107.
During this time, no.
Talked about the horse barn yesterday, if you recall.
Yes.
You talked about the messages between James Crumbley and his wife about the horse barn.
Correct.
In fact, you recalled that James Crumbley and his wife mentioned or talked about the horse barn 86 times in their messages that you reviewed.
Going to a yes, correct.
And you said specifically from January of 2021 through November of 2021, they had talked about going to the horse barn 86 times.
That's correct.
Now, if we do the math quickly, there's 333 days between January 1st of 2021 to November 30th of 2021, if you know. I don't know if you're, I'm not great at math,
I
but
don't know that.
okay. So let's just assume that's the number we come up with. 86 out of 333 is 25.8%. Again, I'm not going to ask you to, I'm not going to hold you to the number.
Okay.
But assuming 86 is correct, assuming 333 is correct, that means that a quarter of the time they're discussing the horse barn.
And really didn't discuss much more than going to work and stuff like that.
On November 28th of 2021, yesterday you testified that
Morning,
Mr.
Harlan.
Crumbley was away from the house for approximately 5 hours. There were screenshots or GPS locations. You remember talking about that yesterday?
What day was this?
November 28th of 2021.
Okay, yes,
There's nothing wrong with being away from home for 5 hours, correct?
correct,
In and of itself, there's nothing wrong with that.
correct.
Exhibit 115, and I am going to bring this up to you, is a Facebook thread between James Crumbly and his wife on November 29th of 2021 from 8:23 a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m.
Okay,
They are discussing issues with their horse.
correct.
We talked about it yesterday. We also learned in that time between 8:23 a.m. and 1 o'clock p.m. that Pamela Fine from Oxford High School called Jennifer Crumbly.
Correct.
She left her a voicemail. Pamela Fine left Jennifer Crumbly a voicemail.
That's correct.
There was another exhibit showing that Jennifer Crumbly accessed that voicemail at approximately 11:49 a.m.
Correct.
In Exhibit 115, there's no discussion between James Crumbly and Jennifer Crumbly about that voicemail.
There was not in this right here, no, but there was a conversation where Jennifer asked James, did he tell you what happened at school today?
And I'm going to get to that in just a second.
Okay.
But in that thread, there isn't anything, especially around 11:49 or even before 1 o'clock p.m., where it's mentioned, I got a voicemail from the school. This is what it was about. Is that fair?
That's fair.
In fact, it wasn't until Exhibit 119 at approximately 3:19 p.m. that Jennifer Crumbly mentioned anything to James Crumbly about something going on with Ethan at school.
Correct.
They had
And
two horses, Johnny.
yes, Your Honor.
And that was part of the issue with their trial before, something a lot of us took issue with, is that, and it was brought up a lot by the prosecution, is that Jennifer specifically, took a lot better care of her horses than she did of her son. She made sure that the horses had all the.
Mike's went down. Look like they're having some sort of discussion with the judge right
Oh,
now.
interesting.
Trial resumed around 9:30 this morning with Edward Rogowski returning to the stand.
We got
There's some
commentary.
technical issue going on in court. We're unable to view the evidence. That's why yesterday we were able to see it on the big screen. Today we're not able to do that. Apparently there's some technical issue going on. It looks like court is back in session. Let's see.
Mr. Crumbly about
Uh-huh.
the incident that
That
led to
was
the
weird.
voicemail. Is that fair? There's an assumption.
Nothing else to base that on happened that was the school called them about.
And that's my point, right?
Correct.
Exactly, Johnny.
And there was
Spent
no
a lot of
conversation
time there.
between James Crumbly and Jennifer Crumbly about that voicemail beyond what we see in that message, in the messages in 119, correct?
Correct.
Exhibit 131 is another Facebook thread between James and Jennifer Crumbly. You're welcome. From November 30th of 2021. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm going to go back to 122. You can keep 131 with you.
Okay.
Exhibit 122 is surveillance video of Mr. Crumbly dropping his son off at school.
Correct.
And then I believe you also testified that there was additional exhibit showing that Mr. Crumbly went to the horse barn that day.
Correct.
That would be November 30th of 2021.
That's correct.
He was waiting for a vet,
Correct.
and that was consistent with the conversation from the day before about one of the horses having some medical issues.
Correct.
So exhibit 131, you see that Jennifer Crumbly sent James Crumbly a picture of the math assignment that was sent to her by the school.
Correct.
And we've talked about this math assignment, and I'm sure that we'll talk about it more, but there were two versions that were sent, correct?
Correct.
And in that thread, there were two versions that were sent from what you can see.
Correct.
James obviously expressed some concern.
In one text, yes.
In fact, he said, "My God, WTF."
Correct.
And we don't have to say what that means, but WTF. Jennifer says that their son was upset, and she used the word, quote unquote, distraught about the night before.
Correct.
James says in response that he talked about it, assuming he means the night before, with their son. Correct?
We talked about I'm sorry, what,
In referring to it, we can presume that they're talking about the night before based on the response to Mrs. Crumbley's text. And if you don't want to presume that, you don't have to.
yeah, I don't. I
Okay.
can't, yeah.
So James Crumbley says, we talked about it this morning.
That's what I
Correct?
said, yes.
Yes. There was no conversation after that about Mr. Crumbley saying, based on that conversation with his son, that he has concerns.
Correct.
In fact, I believe the next message is, did you talk to him?
That's correct.
We know that on November 30th of 2021, James and Jennifer Crumbley went to Oxford High School.
That's correct.
They met at the school around 10:30 a.m.
A little after that, but yes.
The prosecutor asked you if Mr. Crumbley went to the house before going to the school, and you said no.
Correct.
We know that Mr. Crumbley was at the horse barn. He left there and went directly to the school.
Correct.
And that was based on the exhibit that you looked at yesterday.
That's correct.
On his way there, he spoke to his wife.
Correct.
Mr. Crumbley and his wife met with Sean Hopkins at Oxford High School for approximately 13 minutes.
I think it was a little less than that, but yes.
Their son was in the meeting for about 12 of the 13 minutes.
Yeah, almost 12.
James left the school parking lot at 10:57 a.m.,
Okay.
if you recall.
I don't recall the exact time he left, but sounds about right, because they left the counsel's office before that.
You testified that at 11 a.m., Mr. Crumbley logged into his DoorDash app
That's correct.
from the Meyer parking lot on Gray Road.
Yes.
That his first pickup and delivery was from 11 a.m. to 11:19 a.m., if you recall.
Sounds about right. Yes, correct.
So he left the school and started working right away,
Correct.
within 3 minutes. Is that fair?
Yes, correct.
The prosecutor asked you if he stopped by his house during that first DoorDash, and you said no.
That's correct.
To your knowledge, on November 30th of 2021, from 11 a.m. to 11:19 a.m., Mr. Crumbley didn't have any reason to stop by his house. That you know of, that you know of.
Speculation, Judge.
If you know, do you know of any reason?
Was he told? I don't understand the. I apologize.
No, are you aware of any reason that Mr. Crumbley may have known that he needed to go to his house from between 11 to 11:19 on November 30th of 21?
Judge, I think perhaps the better objection would be calling for a legal conclusion, because that's central to the theme of the prosecution, that he did have reason to stop. That's what the jury's being asked to decide.
I guess I don't know how he would know that.
It's based upon his level of knowledge from the last months of the life, Judge. That's what the evidence has shown.
I can move on, Judge.
Thank you,
I
Judge.
just don't know how he would know that.
You identified Exhibit 147 as an email that was sent. Would you like to review it?
I believe that's fine. Thank you.
As an email that was sent from Oxford High School to James Crumbley.
Correct.
That was sent at sometime around 1 p.m.
1:09 p.m. But yes.
That was after, actually, the shooting had ended.
Correct.
In fact, you testified yesterday that the shooting was from 12:51 p.m. to 1300,
Yes, correct.
to 1 o'clock.
Correct. Yes.
That email doesn't show whether or not Mr. Crumbley received it. Is that fair?
That right there doesn't tell me anything other than it was sent to him.
All that tells you is that there was an email sent from the high school to Mr. Crumbley
Correct.
at that email address.
Correct.
And at that time.
Correct.
Hello, Queen Bella.
You know that from 12:33 p.m. to 1:01 p.m., Mr. Crumbley was on a different DoorDash delivery.
Correct.
You know that Exhibit 148 shows that Mr. Crumbley went to the Meyer on Ray Road,
At what time?
1:11 p.m.
Correct.
Did you want to look at the exhibit?
Nope.
So at 1:11 p.m., Mr. Crumbley was at the Meyer on Ray Road. You don't recall any exhibits yesterday showing that Mr. Crumbley was picking up a DoorDash order around 1:11 p.m., correct?
Correct.
You know that Mr. Crumbley called his son based on Exhibit 136, which is his phone log. Mr. Crumbley called his son at 1:13 p.m.
Correct.
Would you like to look at the phone log to get the time?
That's about the right time.
Okay.
Correct. Yes.
And you know that Mr. Crumbly remained at the Meyer, which was the reunification point after the Oxford High School shooting. Mr. Crumbly remained there from 1:11 p.m. to 1:17 p.m.
Correct.
So Mr. Crumbly called his son from the parking lot of the Meyer, which was the reunification point, at 1:13 p.m.
Correct.
He also called his son at 1:17 p.m.,
Correct.
which is right around the same time that he left the Meyer parking lot.
That's correct.
You know that there was a phone call, which was approximately less than 1 minute. And again, if you want to look at it, I can bring it
Just
to
to
you.
make, yes, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
There was a phone call at approximately 1:17 p.m. 1:16 p.m. between Mr. Crumbly and his wife, which lasted less than 1 minute.
Correct.
Mr. Crumbly called his son at 1:17 p.m.
That's correct.
He left the Meyer at approximately 1:17 p.m.
That's correct.
Called his son again at 1:18 p.m.
That's correct.
and again at 1:18 p.m. There were two phone calls at 1:18 p.m. seconds apart.
Correct.
Neither of them were answered.
Correct.
You also know, based on your involvement in this case, that his son was already in custody at that point.
That's correct.
He'd been taken into custody at 1 o'clock.
Correct.
You know that, again, based on 136, Mr. Crumbly's wife called him after he'd left the Meyer parking lot.
At 1:19 p.m., is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Crumbly was home at approximately 1:20 p.m. based on the exhibits, if you recall.
Correct.
He was home while he was on the phone with his wife.
That's correct.
You know that during the time that he was at home, he called 911.
Correct.
He called 911 because he discovered that the Sig Sauer and the ammunition for the Sig Sauer were both missing.
Speculation as to why he called 911, Judge.
He said in the phone call why he called 911.
Well, I guess it's a different question. You don't know why he called 911, but you did hear him. And you did hear the 911 call that.
Correct. Yes.
In that 911 call, Mr. Crumbly told the dispatcher that he saw and heard the sirens, if you remember the call.
Correct.
He said that he went to the Meyer after hearing and seeing the sirens,
Correct.
that his son was a student at Oxford High School,
That's correct.
that he heard that there was a shooting,
Correct.
that he discovered that his gun was missing,
That's correct.
that he didn't know if his son took the gun,
Correct.
and that he was freaking out.
That's correct.
After that phone call to 911, you know that James Crumbly received a phone call from law enforcement and he and his wife went to the substation in Oxford.
Correct.
They returned home around 2:30 p.m.
Correct.
There was some indication and some questioning yesterday from the prosecution about the white paper that had changed hands between James and Jennifer Crumbly at the school.
Correct.
Remember that? And the prosecution asked you if there was any indication that James Crumbly had made phone calls to doctors, hospitals, or physicians, correct?
I remember that. Correct.
To your knowledge, and if you don't know, it's okay to tell me you don't know if there was anything requiring James to make those phone calls, correct?
I know nothing about the meeting.
And you know that the meeting was at approximately, ended around, I think we said 10:53 a.m.
Correct.
And the shooting occurred at began at 12:51 p.m.
That's
It was
correct.
approximately 2 hours later. You also know that in those 2 hours, I'll withdraw that question. You testified about messages between Jennifer Crumbly and a person named Brian Malash.
Correct.
You have no idea whether Mr. Crumbly knew about those messages?
They were together at the time. Other than that, I don't know.
You don't know if Mr. Crumbly knew what Jennifer Crumbly was saying to Brian Malash?
I do not know.
You know that at some point, Mr. Crumbly's son's name was made public.
Correct.
And it was fairly shortly after the shooting occurred, if you recall.
I don't recall when it was.
Were you aware that Mr. Crumbly and his wife began receiving threats to their safety as a result of what their son did at the high school?
I know in some chat threads, there was talk of that, yes.
Were you aware that Mr. Crumbly and his wife had been made aware of some of those threats?
Yes.
Were you aware that there were concerns for Mr. Crumbly and his wife's safety as a result of some of those threats?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was aware, who was aware
That
about
there
this?
were concerns for Mr. Crumbly and his wife's safety as a result of some of those threats?
I know they
I have to
received
object
those.
as to the characterization of what a threat is and what a threat is not. It's, as we know, Judge, it's very subjective.
Okay, so can you be more specific?
I can move on, Your Honor. I was just, my question was mainly if he knew that this occurred. And he said that he did hear something about some threats. I can move on from it, Your Honor. As a result of your involvement in this case, you were aware that Mr. Crumbly's son was criminally charged on December 1st of 2021.
Correct.
That on December 2nd of 2021, there was an announcement from the prosecutor's office that Mr. Crumbly and his wife may be charged, if you recall the date.
I don't recall that.
On December 3rd, 2021 in the afternoon, that Mr. Crumbly and his wife were criminally charged for their son's actions, if you recall the date.
I'm sorry, I don't recall the dates all that happened.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Thank you, Judge. Let's see if I can get this to work.
Could you, I'm not positive it's gonna work right there.
Okay, looks like it's working. Sir,
Well,
can you,
This
This one's
is,
just flashing
like,
it. This keeps flashing the
a
screen.
strobe light.
can you see the other screens?
I can see that fairly well, yes.
Okay.
What she did was just reestablish the timeline with that
That's right.
cross-examination.
That's like flashing.
Yes.
Okay. May I, Judge?
Go ahead.
Sir, you were asked about the shooter and his friend in that conversation that they had. Do you recall those questions?
Yes.
Okay, and then yesterday we had a discussion about that, specifically the amount of text in that conversation, the content of the conversation.
Correct, yes.
Okay, now, from November the 30th of 2021 up until the time that the shooter was arrested I'm sorry, October the 30th of 21 to November the 30th of 21 when he was arrested, were there any responsive text from the friend to the shooter?
No, there was not.
In that conversation, we talked about in April how the shooter expressed to that friend that he had asked his father for help.
Correct.
And you were asked about some context, and I think your answer was that there was more context to it, you just couldn't recall. So I'm going to show it to you. So we'll go through the entire exhibit. This is exhibit 67. This is the shooter. Like I hear people talking to me and see someone in the distance. That's April 4th of 21.
Correct.
And then right after the shooter out, I actually asked my dad to take the doctor yesterday, but he just gave me some pills and told me to, quote, suck it up.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And then he wrote, like, it's at the point that I'm asking to go to the doctor. And then my mom laughed when I told her.
That's correct.
Okay. The next text is April the 5th, just after midnight, but I'm having bad insomnia. RN. What does RN mean?
Right now.
You know? Okay. Right now. And paranoia. I need
Right.
help. I was thinking I'm calling 911 so I could go to the hospital.
That's correct.
Then he wrote, but then my parents would be really pissed. That's April 5th, 21 at 12:12 in the morning.
That's correct.
I'm going to ask my parents to go to the doctor's tomorrow or Tuesday again. That's April 5th, 21 at 12:38 a.m.
Correct.
And then, but this time I'm going to tell them about the voices. April 5th, 21 at 12:38 a.m. And then the last text is like I am mentally and physically dying. That's April the 5th, 21 at 12:39 in the morning.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's in the same conversation.
Correct, yes.
Okay, is that the context you're referring to?
Yes, I do remember that now, yes. That's what I was referring to.
And in this conversation, you're saying, this is in August, between the shooter and his friend, you were asked about these videos. I'm going to play this one. This is August 20th at 12:30 in the morning. Okay, is that the noise you were referring to? The noise that it makes when you?
Yeah, the metal
fire?
was slamming together and putting the magazine in and slamming it on the table.
Now you were asked about the horse barn, and I'm just going to use council's math here. So if that math is correct, that means 25% of all, so a quarter of the year, they were discussing meeting at the barn.
Correct.
Okay. Any indication in any of those conversations that they were taking their son with them?
No, it was not.
Now I want to ask you about exhibit 130. And you were asking questions about November the 30th, 2021, when they were called to the school. So we talked yesterday about James when he started door dashing on November the 30th. You recall that?
Yes,
Okay. So earlier in the morning, just to get the timeline correct, we had 7:46 a.m. James Crumbley dropped his son off at Oxford High School.
that's correct.
He's back at home at 8:04 a.m.
Correct.
and then he's at the barn after that.
Correct.
Okay. And we went through that Facebook conversation between James and Jennifer Crumbley when she showed him this picture, exhibit one. This is exhibit 128. And I'm going to go to the original one as well, which is 130. So we saw that Facebook conversation November the 30th, approximately 9:30 in the morning, when Jennifer Crumbley sent this to James Crumbley.
Correct.
Okay. So based upon the location history and what you were able to determine, he was at the barn at that point?
That's correct.
Okay, so he had not checked in for the day and began working that day?
Correct.
Okay. So it was not until after he saw this, and that's when he signed on to DoorDash?
Correct, after the meeting.
Okay. So you were asked, did he have any reason to stop home? But I want to talk about after he saw this, if he ever stopped home at all. Okay?
Okay.
So November 30th, 2021 at 11 a.m., that's when he first signed on to accept his first order for DoorDash. Is that right?
That is about right, yes.
Okay. And we went through some of those maps. We went through a little bit quickly yesterday. So I want to make sure that we're on the same page. When he was accepting these orders and making deliveries, it wasn't outside of Oakland County, was it?
No, it was not.
In fact, where was it?
All local within Oxford.
Within Oxford. Okay. And he actually drove by his house at least 4 times from the point that he saw this to the point the shooting started.
That's correct.
And never once did he stop home.
No, he did not.
Now, yesterday you mentioned how you responded to the scene and you went to the mire first.
Yes.
And that's the mire that James Crumbley was at when he received the alert of the active shooting at Oxford High School.
That's correct.
And you were helping parents find their kids when you were there?
Yes.
You talked a little bit about the school buses and what you saw. How many parents were there?
Dozens of just standing around in the cold.
Were more coming when you were
Yes.
at school?
Yes, cars kept on coming.
And based upon what we know from the timeline you were able to put together with the data locations, we know that 1:10 p.m. James Crumbley got the email. We know with a certainty that he was at the Meyer parking lot at least by 1:11.
Correct.
He made phone calls in that period of time, and he didn't leave, and he left at 1:17 p.m. So he was in the parking lot where everybody else went to for at least 6 minutes, and then he went home.
Correct.
Okay. And he got home at 1:20 p.m.
Correct.
He was on the phone with his wife for a 10-minute phone call, we said.
Correct.
Okay. And it wasn't for another 14 minutes that he called 911.
Correct.
And it wasn't just parents at that Meyer parking lot. There were students there as well.
Hundreds of them, yes.
Okay. You know, there's 1,700 students at Oxford High School.
I did not know that, but it's a big school.
From what you saw there, the scene that you saw when you pulled up in that white minivan you told us about, and you saw the school buses with kids looking for parents. And
Your Honor,
parents
I'm
looking
going
for
to object. The prosecution's testifying.
kids. I'll get to the question, Judge.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
please.
Did it seem like It was that number of students in Oxford High School. Paint us the picture of what you saw when you got there.
Again,
I
when
would also object to relevance about what he saw when he got to the Meyer, Your Honor.
It's important because counsel made a point in her cross-examination to suggest that there's no reason for James Crumbley to go home. And I think this witness has established yesterday and today that James Crumbley was actually at the location where everybody else was going to. So it's important for the jury to understand what he was observing when he sped from Pontiac to that location.
Your Honor, I don't understand what Mr. Wagorowski observed at the Meyer is relevant to whether or not James Crumbley felt that he needed to go home. I don't know how the two are connected, Your Honor.
I'm at a loss myself. Maybe I'm missing something.
Okay. Did all the other parents you saw, did they leave or did they stay?
they stayed.
Thank you. Nothing further.
All right, you can step down and.
Your Honor, very brief recross?
Okay.
Very brief, thank you.
All right.
I believe I only have 3 questions.
Okay.
4, can I get my exhibit back? Thank you. In April of 21, you testified about Mr. Crumbley's son telling his friend, I'm gonna ask my parents to go to the doctor, right?
Correct.
You don't know what doctor that was?
We was talking about hearing voices in the distance and stuff like that, but
You don't know what doctor that was, is that accurate? In reviewing the exhibit that we have, we don't know what doctor he was asking to see.
from the word prior to that, where he's hearing voices and he feels like he's dying inside, I do not know the doctor.
You don't know. You don't know if he ever did ask.
He's a good witness.
He mentioned it in a couple different conversations that he was going to try to ask.
Going to try. You don't know if he ever did.
I do not.
One moment, please.
He's a good witness because he gets in the
Okay, no further questions, Your Honor.
Judge, I just
Points.
have to redirect because I have to correct something that was just said in that exhibit. Just one question on that, April.
Okay. I mean, in theory, he could be recalled, so. I'm sure he'd be happy to have to. So.
Okay, so this is exhibit 67. We went through this part like I hear people talking to me. The next slide. I actually asked my dad to take to the doctor yesterday.
Correct, yes.
Okay, is that your recollection?
Yes.
as well? Thank you.
Correct.
Thank you, Judge.
Anything further?
One question. Sure you know what it is. You don't know what doctor that was, right?
Other than the context of the information prior to that.
That's
Yeah.
Asked
it.
and answered.
Yeah, he said he- no. He said it was, no.
Thanks, Judge.
Okay, so I'm gonna let you step down, and you're excused.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
They've all been keying on that specific text exchange.
If there's a witness who's excused and for some reason you think they might be recalled, I need to know if they were not permitted to sit in the courtroom, all right?
Yes,
If
sir.
someone's excused, I presume that they're able to sit in the courtroom, so if there's a reason, why not just let me know?
I suppose there is always a possibility with a computer crimes expert for rebuttal, so we'll have Mr. Wazrowski. That's it, I think he has.
Okay. All right, everybody good?
May I proceed next, please? Robert Callis?
Raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm the testimony about your is the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you pull your hand here? Have a second. Have a seat. Could you state your name for record and spell your first and last name?
Robert F. Kotelis Jr., ROBERT KOTELES.
Right, go ahead, prosecutor.
I'm sorry, may I proceed? Thank you. Just take me 1 second. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
If you could, please tell us where you work.
I work for the Oakland County Sheriff's Office in the forensic laboratory there.
And how long have you been with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office?
I'm in my 17th year.
And prior to working with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office, did you work in law enforcement?
Yes, I did.
And what did you do and where did you work?
I worked for the city of Pontiac at the police department, and where I was a a crime scene investigator there for almost 9 years.
So also law enforcement, you've been involved over 25 years.
It'll be 25 years on March 17th of this year.
Okay. And what is your specific role right now with the sheriff's office?
I'm a latent print supervisor along with the crime scene supervisor for crime scenes out in the field.
Okay. And tell us specifically about crime scene supervision. What does that mean?
Well, I run a unit of, I have 6 employees, including myself, that respond to crime scenes when called upon to do an investigation out in the field for identification of evidence, documentation, preservation, and collection of evidence to be used to help figure out what happened at crime scenes.
Okay. So you said when called upon, is it every crime scene that you and your team are called out, or does it just depend on the circumstance?
Typically, for the crime scene unit to be called out, it has to be of a major crime or of a heinous nature, typically murders and maybe sexual assaults that are covered that would need to be processed at a higher level than other evidence technicians that I have on the road.
Okay. So how often would you or your team be called out, let's say, on a weekly basis?
Right now, our average is probably twice a month. So, thankfully, we don't have a murder happen every day in the county of Oakland. So, major crimes that we are doing are probably a couple of months. Sometimes it may be more, sometimes it may be less. But right now, statistically, we're about 2 times a month.
Okay. Now, prior to joining the sheriff's office, did you have the opportunity to attend an Institute of Higher Learning?
Yes, I have a forensic science degree from Michigan State University, and I've taken continuing education classes ever since then upon my employment in 1999.
So when you say continuing education, is this a field that's evolving?
Every day.
Okay. And then do you have training to evolve along with it?
Yes, there is a yearly conference that I'm a member of, the IEI, which is a conference and a huge body of people that we get together and talk about technology and how everything advances in not only latent prints, but crime scene investigations to make sure that we kind of stay up with the new technology and that we're utilizing that technology to assist in crime scene processing.
Now, how often would you say in your career you've processed a crime scene?
Oh man, I'd have to say in the thousands.
When I say process a crime scene, I guess that suggests an answer there. Is there a specific process that you go through when you're reviewing a crime scene?
There's definitely a standard as far as the basics, I would say. Upon arrival to a crime scene, you're going to do an assessment, maybe what we call a walkthrough. You're going to assess what you actually have at that crime scene, trying to identify anything that may be important to that case. And there's certain documentation that can be done via notes, photographs, possibly a sketch or measurements, or as we've progressed with technology, we have a 3D scanner that we can use that to assist us in documenting our crime scenes, along with collection of evidence at a crime scene. Now, there's additional things that can be done, but it doesn't happen on every case. But those are the basics that would most likely be performed on every crime scene that we would go on.
Okay. Now, prior to undergoing that, is there a conversation that you or a member of your team would have with a detective in charge?
Absolutely, with the OIC, so that way we would know what we're kind of looking for. If we know the cause of this crime scene, if it's a homicide, if it's a stabbing, we're looking for a knife, if it's a shooting, we're looking for firearms evidence, so that we can kind of get an idea. Now, if you find something that may be different, then we would, get with that OIC or that detective and let them know of our findings that on our initial walkthrough.
Okay. I'd like to direct your attention now to November the 30th of 2021.
Hey,
Do you remember
Anonymous.
that day?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Were you working that day?
Yes, I was.
In what capacity were you working?
It was during day shift, and so I was working in the actual laboratory that day.
Okay. And at that point, were you the crime scene supervisor?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And were you the individual on call if anything should happen that day?
Yes, I was.
Right. So, were you called in to process the crime scene at Oxford High School November 30th, 2021?
Yes, I was.
Did you actually go to that location?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall approximately when you arrived there?
It was 2:40 in the afternoon. I received the call at 1:15, and by the time I assembled my team and grabbed our resources, it was 2:40 before I got up to the actual high school.
Okay, so that was after the scene was cleared, is that right?
At the beginning stage of being cleared.
Okay. Now, I'd like to talk to you about your specific process and your role when you arrived at Oxford High School November the 30th of 21.
Okay.
All right. So you arrived there about 2:40. You said with your team.
Correct.
Okay. And tell us, please, what's the first thing you did when you arrived?
Waited for guidance on what was going to be done first. So the first information was that I needed to collect a firearm that was the result of what had taken place at the high school.
Hey, Marie.
And did you do that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And tell us how that occurred, please.
The firearm was located within a garbage can, a small waste paper basket garbage can that was placed there by a deputy that had collected the item from the individual. So I viewed it, photographed it, and then collected it at that time.
Okay. And that firearm, after it was collected, was taken to the forensic laboratory at the Oakland County Sheriff's Office. They approached us. This has been admitted, People's 28. This is forensic laboratory report request number 6. So just to confirm, that was authored by Mr. Robert Charlton from the Sheriff's
Your
Office.
Honor, I'm gonna object. These are leading questions. He can review the exhibit and testify about the exhibit, Your Honor.
It's already been admitted. So
Well, yeah, the exhibit's submitted, but she was an objector to the exhibit, she was objecting to the leading question.
that's fine. Was that weapon confirmed to be the murder weapon?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And is that reflected in that report?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Now, after you collected the weapon, that's reflected in that forensic laboratory report right there. What did you do next?
Waited for the scene to be cleared. There was intel still being obtained by the investigators on scene at other sites. So it was several hours before me and my team actually got into the high school to see what I actually had or what we actually had as far as for crime scene processing.
Okay. Now, in this particular scene, at this time, November the 30th, were you made aware of the path that the shooter took throughout the high school?
I was given a general direction, and then the scene was contained to one wing of the high school.
Okay. Do you recall the number or the name of that wing?
It was the 200 wing of the high school.
And when you process a scene, do you also author a report?
Yes, I do.
May I approach the witness?
Sure.
This is Exhibit 14. Sir, take a look at that and tell me if you recognize it.
Yes, I do.
Okay. And what is it that I just handed you?
This is my 5-page crime scene report that I prepared at a later date after the crime scene processing of my findings that I had documented at the crime scene on November 30th.
Okay, so that's already been admitted into evidence. That's Exhibit 14. But so the jury's aware, does that fairly accurately depict what you observed and what you processed and collected that day?
Yes, it does.
Did you obtain a map to help you with the processing of the scene?
Yes, I did. I call maybe a blueprint or a schematic of the overall diagram of the entire school.
Okay. And after you obtain that, do you make notations on that?
Yes, there was a couple of us that worked on the actual schematic of the location of the evidence and the victims within the high school.
I'm going to show you. Approach does that screen on. You may have to look at.
Welcome, Sarah Porter.
It's, see if you push that on, it kind of scroll once.
Go ahead, turn it on.
I can see this.
You can see that? Okay, great.
If that's okay.
So I'm showing you what's been admitted as People's 15. Sir, do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
And how so?
This is the schematic drawing that was prepared by the school or some other agency as far as for the school layout. Once again, this is the schematic that was used to place the piece of evidence on where they were located within the school outside of classrooms and where the victims were located within the school.
These notations were made by lab personnel?
Yes, it was. There's some by myself, and there's also by Rob Charlton, who works in the firearms unit. That's also a crime scene investigator with me.
So what do these notations signify?
There's numbers that are circled that would also coincide with the placards that were placed next to the piece of evidence within the crime scene for documentation purposes.
Okay, when you say placard, we're going to go through some pictures soon, but if you see a yellow placard with a number, that's what you're referring to?
That is correct.
And why is that done?
It's used mainly for photographic reasons, but also helps us to keep straight each piece of evidence that was collected, given a location of where it was within that crime scene.
Okay, and photographs were taken in this situation?
Yes, they were.
Now I'm gonna go through, okay, this is 15, and you said it was the 200 hallway, that was the wing the shooting was contained to?
That is correct.
Okay, so we see numbers, not the notations from the crime lab, but numbers of classrooms here. So 258, that's the number of a classroom?
That is correct.
Okay, and then to the far right, it goes to approximately 214, 213, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. So we'll go one portion at a time here.
This is the only
So
witness
this
they've had
is
today.
the zoomed in version of Exhibit 15. What does this depict?
This is.
Sorry, this is the second witness.
An
Sorry.
area outside of 258 and 256, where two of the victims were found, that contained a large amount of evidence. And then you can start to see where it turns to the north, which would be to the right of this photograph. That would work your way up to the north, which is the remainder of the 200 wing that contained more evidence outside the rooms from 249 all the way down to 213.
Okay. So in the course of your investigation, did you come to learn what bathroom the shooter walked out of directly
Yep.
before the shooting?
Sorry. Yes, I was given the information that it was found just west of room 258.
So that would be this bathroom here that's highlighted?
That is correct.
Okay. So specifically now from what you recovered from the bathroom in this shorter wing of the 200 hallway, I'm going to take you through the path the shooter took with these pictures. Judge, two of these pictures have images that I'd ask the court to instruct the media not to film.
Your Honor, I'm not going to object to that. I am going to just indicate for the record, I believe that it's Exhibit 17 and Exhibit 26 that I will be objecting to, renewing objections that I made previously on the record to those two photographs.
Okay.
Is that correct, Mr. Booth?
That's, both of those things are correct. I did want the court to know that we did speak with the victims prior to the trials, and they understand.
Okay, so you're right now presenting exhibit number 17.
First, it'll be Exhibit 16, but then it's Exhibit 17 after that.
Okay, so that they're both of those images cannot be shown
Correct.
to the press. And are the victims who are here familiar with what those photos contain?
Yes, Judge.
So that they're welcome to exit if they feel the need, right?
Thank you, Judge.
Okay. So you guys get it.
Which two?
The next two, 16 and 17.
After this.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll make sure before I display it on the screen to let that work.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll start with the bathroom next to 258. That's Exhibit 16 here. And what does this photograph depict?
This is in the stall within the bathroom, which would be found just west of room 258, that contained a red backpack and miscellaneous items such as electronic equipment, books, journals. There's a Gatorade bottle, amongst other miscellaneous items.
Okay, so all of that was collected as evidence?
That is correct.
Okay. Judge, the next photograph is Exhibit 17. I asked the media not to film this.
Yes, could you refrain from that?
I'm just going to shoot it.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Okay,
He's filming, you're filming the witness.
Yeah.
thank you. This is Exhibit 17. What are we looking at here?
This is a photograph taken outside of that bathroom that I just spoke of. This photograph is taken from the west to the east, showing the hallway that would be found just south of rooms 258 and 256. And you can start to see the yellow placards that I spoke of to depict the evidence that was found in that hallway area, along with one of the victims that's found in the middle of this photograph, but on the right-hand side of the hallway when you're looking east.
So that's Hannah St. Juliana, and then the other victim is Madison Baldwin, is that correct?
That is correct. It's hard to see on this photograph because it's far away, but it would be on the left-hand side of the hallway, further east as you move down the hallway.
Sir, tell us what you recovered from this portion of the 200 hallway.
There were several fire cartridge cases. There were 14 found, 14 fire cartridge cases found in this portion of the hallway. along with several fired bullets and bullet fragments along this hallway area that were found in several areas of the hallway.
What's the cartridge case?
The cartridge case is the portion of a bullet that actually holds the bullet itself. And in a semi-automatic weapon, it will eject from the side of the weapon. So the bullet will go through the barrel portion or the end of the firearm. And the fired cartridge case will then eject more than likely out the right-hand side, depending on which firearm we're talking about. About 99% of semi-automatic weapons will eject to the right. So the bullet will go out the barrel, and the fired cartridge case that held that bullet portion will eject to the right-hand side of that weapon.
Okay. So in order for it to be a fired cartridge case, that would have to mean that the gun was actually fired.
That is correct.
Okay. So with 14 fired cartridge cases, that would indicate that the gun was shot 14 times in this portion of the hallway.
That is correct.
Now, continuing down the shooter's path, when I ask you what happened or what you located past rooms 256 as the hallway curves to 249. So this is room 258 on the left. Next to that is room 256. As it curves, it's 249. Is that your recollection?
That is correct.
Okay. This is People's Exhibit 18. So this is further down the same portion of 200 hallway.
That is correct. It's just past the second victim on the left-hand side.
All right. Tell us what was located here.
There was more fired bullets and fired cartridge cases, along with a empty gun magazine that was located just around the corner from this evidence here.
Okay. Now, as that corner turns down the 200 hallway, this is People's Exhibit 19. I should say for the record, all these have been admitted. Council did state her objections on the record, but this court ruled upon.
Yes.
Thank you, Judge.
Correct.
This is Exhibit 19. What are we looking at here?
This is now a photograph taken from the south to the north as we're moving, I would say, down in the numbers, but it's up as far as, like, if you're thinking about going north, down the 200 wing. So you're moving away from that bathroom where everything may have started. And this is once again indicating the evidence that was located from room 249 to 213, which ended up containing 18 more fired cartridge cases in this area.
Okay. So we had 14 in the shorter portion of the 200 hallway and 18 from room 249 to 213 down this long hallway.
That is correct.
Okay. And again, that means the firearm was fired 18 more times there, at least what you recovered.
That is correct.
This is Exhibit 20, specifically placard 35. What's that?
So placard 35 or number 35 is the firearms magazine that I spoke of that was found in the hallway there.
Now, up and down this portion of the hallway specifically, did you find evidence that the shooter fired directly into classrooms as well?
Yes, there were several classrooms that were found to be fired into.
Okay. This is Exhibit 21, depicting classroom 247. First of all, what's that rod that we're looking at?
So it's what we'll consider what we call a trajectory rod to show the path of the bullet that was fired at that location. So it's just shown for kind of demonstrative purposes that you can see where that bullet actually traveled into that room.
Okay, so this indicates to us that the gun was shot directly into room 247.
That is correct, right through the door trim there.
This is Exhibit 22. This is depicting classroom 244. What do we see here?
Once again, a trajectory rod was inserted into the window portion. It got shattered, but it still stayed intact. But you can see the trajectory rod showing where the bullet passed through the window that was fired in room 244.
This is Exhibit 12. It's room 224. What do we see here?
You can see the room, the door to the room. There are 3 trajectory rods that were placed in it to show that there was 3 shots that were fired into room 224.
It's Exhibit 10. This is also room 224 but with the door open.
That is correct. And you can see on the inside of the door, it's just the continuation of that trajectory rod to show, that those shots were fired into that room.
Okay. And we have Ms. Darnell, Molly Darnell testified yesterday. This was her classroom. This is what you refer to in the window here.
That is correct.
Okay, and then the file cabinet,
Yes, there was, I would say in the window is what we call a perforation. So one of the bullets passed through the door and then went through the window, that was never found because it went out into the exterior of the school. There was what we call a ricochet that was found in the file cabinet, which is right there in the middle that the prosecutor is highlighting. There was also what we call another ricochet that hit the chair, the backing of the chair. And then eventually a fired bullet was found embedded in a book that was found on the bookshelf behind the teacher's desk.
okay, thank you. And that's room 224. This is exhibit 23. This is classroom 223. We have a side-by-side view of this. What do we see here?
Once again, this is showing how a bullet would have struck the door. This actual impression shows that the bullet hit something additional prior to hitting this door. So it's what we call a tumbling bullet. So instead of being like a round impression or a pattern where a bullet would be circular, the bullet has now changed its path and it's tumbling. So now it hit it kind of going sideways. And that's depicted on the right-hand side there, that you can see the sticker that was placed below it.
Here's exhibit 24. This is classroom 220. What do we see here?
Once again, you can see there's a trajectory rod and the outside of the door showing the path of travel that the bullet was fired into room 220.
And finally, exhibit 25. This is classroom 215. What do we see here?
Once again, these are trajectory rods. They're just a different color because we ran out of pink, but we're on to orange trajectory rods that are fired into the window outside of room 215, showing that the bullets were fired from the outside to the inside of that room.
Okay, thank you, sir. Now, did you come to learn that once the shooter reached rooms 213, 214, that he backtracked down the 200 hallway?
I was told that information.
Okay. Sir, did you process the men's bathroom in the 200 hallway that was across from classroom 233?
Yes, I believe it was either 233 or 231. It was in the same general area.
The camera person is asking when they can resume.
After the next picture, Judge. Okay, this is exhibit 26. So what do we see here?
This is a photograph taken outside of that bathroom that we're talking of, outside or across from 231. You can start to see inside the bathroom, there's a black backpack. Along with there's I believe it's a live round or a cartridge as we call it, just found outside of the bathroom. And then you can start to see that there's a large pool of blood inside of that bathroom area. And this is just the entrance to the bathroom itself from the exterior of the hallway.
Did you come to learn this is where Justin Schilling was killed?
Yes, I was.
Did you also recover a fired shell or fired cartridge in this area as well?
Yes, a fired cartridge case was located in this bathroom.
Is that included in the count of 18 you described earlier?
Yes, it is.
Sir, you mentioned earlier the firearm was recovered. This is exhibit 27. Is this a photograph right outside of that bathroom that we just saw?
Yes, it was not taken by me because the firearm had been collected by the on-scene deputies when the suspect was apprehended.
Okay. But that is the firearm that you collected?
That is correct.
And it's a 6-hour 9mm handgun?
Correct.
Now, based upon your crime scene investigation, how many times did the shooter fire that weapon inside Oxford High School on November the 30th?
32 times.
And how many unfired rounds, how many bullets were recovered, either from that magazine or elsewhere?
18.
So a total of 50 rounds of 9mm ammunition was taken to Oxford High School?
That is correct.
Thank you. I have nothing further, Judge.
Oh, should I give them a break right now? Does that make sense to you? Should I ask you to break? Yes. What's that?
Either or. I mean, we'll need a longer break to fix the monitors as well, Judge. I don't know how long process will take this witness.
No
Might make
pressure.
sense.
No problem.
No pressure.
Oh, okay. Do we ask someone about the monitor? Okay. I'm going to give you about a 10-minute break. I always say that, and then, I go back there and the fires erupt. So, we're going to need a moment to fix this monitor so that the witness can see it. It's kind of flashing. It's distracting. So, but someone will be right here. So we're going to give about a 10-minute break, all right? All right, you can step down when you're excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All rise for the jury.
All right, you can take them down. You can be seated. Who's the next witness?
Yeah, I'll check. We're moving faster than I had anticipated, Judge. We'll have to see if she's here, but it would be Miss Candy Pfaff.
Okay. She's gonna go. Yeah. All right. Do that. State your name for the record and can you spell your first and last name?
Cammy back.
Okay, they've just gotten back into court from that break that they just took, and they're, starting with this witness. But I want to really quick show you this news clip from what why they sought that order yesterday, that communication order about James Crumbley, because I'm curious about it too, and I've been poking around trying to figure out specifically what threat he made, and I haven't found it, and so I want to watch this. So let's watch this real quick.
Sure did. I mean, the judge had sent the jury home for the day, told them to come back to, tomorrow, 9 a.m. And it just seemed like there was a bunch of, standard end of the day paper shuffling. And then all of a sudden, this drops. Let me show you the moment.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. David Williams.
Good afternoon. Would you call this a motion? Is that?
Judge, I think it is. It's an oral motion.
Your Honor, before we get started, I'm just going to place my objection on the record that this is being handled.
It had been a day of draining testimony, like teacher Molly Darnell reliving when the Oxford High School shooter leveled a gun at her and shot her through her classroom door. Now, the jury had been dismissed for the day, and then this goes down. It's not clear to the public what's going on, just that there's some issue with Crumbley, which then turns into a back and forth, and the issue becomes clear. Prosecutors want to limit James Crumbley's electronic communication, meaning phone or email. No reason is given, but after further back and forth, a deal is struck.
The agreement is going to be that Mr. Crumbley's communications will be revoked, but not his ability to do research or otherwise participate in his own defense. So not just communicating with counsel, but his ability to read or get other information.
Okay.
What in the world motivated prosecutors to restrict his communication? Tonight we've confirmed he's made threats, against whom is unclear, just that there have been things said during jailhouse calls or emails that prosecutors want to put an end to. Back here live. So what's the volume of these threats? How long has it been going on? Tonight, that's unknown, but I will say, if you listen closely to the video in court and sort of the mumbling back and forth, you hear David Williams sort of say every call. So clearly it doesn't sound like this is a one phone call issue, that there has been some sort of a pattern here. And that's why prosecutors did what they did today. We're live at the Oakland County Courthouse tonight. I'm Mara McDonald, Local 4.
Okay, Mara.
So there's I want to know what these threats are. And it's true. We did hear them say every call. He said every call, Your Honor. So if these were threats of bodily harm, I suspect that it would have been much more serious, and they wouldn't have been able to come up with a, stipulated order between the lawyers. But isn't that interesting? Well, mother of cycle breakers, you mean his current wife, because he and Jennifer are still married. They're estranged, but they're still married. So do you mean that ex-wife, or do you mean a different ex-wife? Because I don't know much about his relationship with his other ex-wife. I know he has children from another mother, former wife. Okay. Interesting. Who knows? Yeah, I don't think he's allowed to communicate with Jennifer either because he's still party to this case, and this state case is still going on. Yeah, that's because he can't wear they can't wear ties in jail because it's potential for self-harm. He has to take it off and on every time he comes back in and out. So, all right, I'm going to jump back to the courtroom where they just brought in a new witness.
CAMMYBACK. Go ahead, Pastor.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Miss, do you work at a retail store that sells firearms?
I do,
Okay, and where is that located?
in Oxford, Michigan.
He testified at the last
And
trial.
is that store federally licensed?
Yes, it is.
So it'd be referred to as an FFL or federally firearms licensed dealer?
Yes.
And how long have you worked there?
Approximately 4 years.
What is your duties there? What are your duties there?
At this time, I am the office manager.
Okay. So with the office manager, are you familiar with the process?
I'll look for that,
to
Mother.
sell from an FFL a firearm to a customer?
Yes.
Okay. Could you walk us through the process, please?
So when a customer comes in to purchase a firearm, they have to provide us with a driver's license
Why do you ask for a driver's license?
for picture ID
Okay.
to go on record.
Should you check age as well?
Yes.
Okay. And what age are you looking for?
21 and over.
Okay.
Once I take that, I give the customer the 4473, which is the application.
Thank you. Okay.
For the firearm. Once that is filled out with their answers, I do the next check, which is the background. And once I do that, it'll come back whether it's proceed, delayed, or denied.
Okay. So if I understand this correctly, if someone were to walk into the store and say, I want to purchase this firearm, you would ask for picture ID, and then that person would fill out the application for the firearm?
Yes,
And that's what you refer to as the 4473?
yes,
Okay. And is that also referred to as a firearms transaction record?
yes.
Okay. And then that person goes through, you take that information, and then what do you do with it?
I put all their information into the computer, into the NICS system.
Okay, and that's for background purposes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then it tells you either yes or no to proceed?
Yes,
Okay. And then the 4473, that's provided through the ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms.
yes,
Okay. There's also a trigger lock statement that's provided as well,
yes,
and that's through Michigan State Police.
yes.
And tell me what that is, please.
So once it's just a form stating, showing the customer that there is a trigger lock provided with the firearm that they are going to purchase. So they have to date and sign it, as
Okay.
long as we have to do it as well.
Okay. And if that form has been dated and signed, and there's an indication that some kind of lock is provided, that means a lock was in fact provided for the purchase?
Yes,
Does your store also provide purchasers of handguns with a copy of the ATF Youth Handgun Safety Notice Act?
yes.
Okay. And what is that?
The Youth Act just gives the information of the do's and the don'ts with firearm around minors.
Okay. And there's information posted around your store too, is that right?
I'm sorry?
There's information about that posted around your store as well?
Yes, it is.
And now, is this process that you described, is this the same process for every handgun sale in your store?
Yes.
Now, have you sold a firearm to James Crumbley?
Yes.
Okay, is he in court today?
Yes, he is.
Can you point him, please describe something he's wearing?
To my right, blue shirt.
For the record, reflect identification of the defendant, Judge.
Record will reflect the report of identification of the defendant, James Crumbley.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Back, when a firearm is sold from your store, are receipts kept?
Yes,
Okay. And from your position as office manager, are you able to tell us if James Crumbley purchased firearms on, or strike that? As an office manager, are you able to tell us every time that James Crumbley purchased a firearm from your store?
yes.
I'd like to first direct your attention to June of 2021. Miss, you've seen receipts pistol sales records, trigger lock statements, firearms transaction records of firearm sales from your store to James Crumbly, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to, these have been admitted. It's exhibits 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, and 36 for the record. And Ms. Beck, we'll go through those one by one.
Sure.
Okay. We're gonna start, can you see this, People's Exhibit 29?
Yes.
Okay. So what are we looking at right here?
That is a sales receipt.
Okay, and this is a receipt from the store that you work at as an office manager?
Yes.
Okay. And what does it indicate as far as what was sold?
A Cobra Elite Classic,
And what's the price for that?
$169.95.
Okay, so $169.95.
Yes.
And it indicates 22 LR, what's that?
The ammo.
Okay, so it's a 22 caliber
Yeah.
gun?
Yes.
And this is a 2-shot pistol, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so this, what's the date of this receipt?
June 15th of 21.
And we have at the top here, underneath the date, name James Robert Crumbly.
Yes.
Okay, so that indicates that James Robert Crumbly was in your store and paid $180.15. That's the price with tax for that handgun?
Yes.
Okay. This is Exhibit 30. What do we see here?
This is a pistol sales record.
Okay. And tell us please again, what is a pistol sales record?
This is a record that you are given when you buy a pistol. He takes his copy that has to be dropped within 10 days of the purchase, and we keep a copy.
What do you mean dropped?
At their local sheriff's department, police department, whatever county they live in.
Okay, so this has James Robert Crumbly's name on it. It has the serial number of the firearm, and it said Cobra Classic 22 caliber. It has the shot, it says 2, so that indicates 2-shot.
Yes.
Okay, and it has the barrel length on there as well.
Yes.
But it says purchase transfer date June 16th, 21. What is that?
So when Mr. Crumbly came in to purchase this firearm, he possibly got it delayed, it seems. And he had to pick up the firearm prior to him getting to proceed, which I'm assuming was the next day.
Okay, when you say delay, what does that mean?
That his background check is still under review.
Okay, and that can happen from time to time?
Yes.
So he paid for the gun on the 15th, but picked up the gun on the 16th?
Yes.
This is People's Exhibit 33. This is what? This is sales receipt?
Yes.
Okay, and what's the date of this?
June 16th, 21.
Okay, and again, the name James Robert Crumbly?
Yes.
Okay, but what's this receipt for?
It's a purchase of another firearm.
Okay, and that says Caltech P17 22 LR,
Yes.
and the amount for that is $299.95?
Yes.
Okay, and then what else did he buy with that?
He bought 2 boxes of ammo,
Okay, and what was the price for each box of ammo?
$14.95.
And so he spent a grand total of $349.64 on June 16th?
Yes.
All right. So if he picked up the Classic on June 16th, and while he was in the store, or at some point that day, he also paid for this Caltech?
Yes.
This is Exhibit 34, another pistol sales record. What is this of?
This is the pistol sales record for the Caltech P17. Again, the purchase date here is 6/17/21.
Okay, so what would that indicate to you then if he paid for it on the 16th, but he received possession of it on the 7th?
That he is either delayed or his research was taking too long, so he chose to leave our store and come back at a later date or time that day
Mm-hmm.
to pick his gun up.
Okay, so then you actually picked it up on the 17th then?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Now, I'm gonna direct attention now to November the 26th of 2021. On that day, do you recall selling a firearm to the defendant, Mr. Crumbly?
Yes,
This is exhibit 37 here. What is this?
that is the 6-hour SP 2022
Okay. And
sales receipt.
this is dated November 26, 2021.
Yes,
And how much did the 6 hour cost?
$489.95.
Okay, so with tax, he paid a total of $519.35.
Yes,
And what is the date of when he walked out of the store with that gun?
11/26/21.
Okay, so on that day, he paid for it and walked out the same day.
Yes,
Now, on these pistol sales records, we also have a box here that indicates serial number.
yes,
Okay. To your knowledge, does every firearm have a unique serial number?
yes, they do.
Was the defendant with anyone when he made this purchase of the 6 hour 9mm?
Yes.
And tell me about that, please.
Mr. Crumbly had another gentleman with him, a younger guy. And when I came out of the office, him and the gentleman, he was standing at the counter, the showcase.
When we say gentleman, did you come to learn who that person was?
Yes, his son.
Okay.
He was standing at the showcase and his son was standing behind him.
Okay.
Good morning, Delene.
I approached a customer prior to Mr. Crumbly, and he directed me to go ahead and take care of Mr. Crumbly first. So I did. Mr. Crumbly asked to see the 6 hour, said he had had his eye on that for quite some time. And just because he is a familiar face to our store, I looked at him and said, you know the drill, I need your license. Took that, made copies while he was filling out his application.
Okay.
And once that was done, I ran him and through the NICS system for his background check. And once I finished that up, I told Mr. Crumbly, he was in research, that Chris, which is another employer, would be taking his cell over. Mr. Crumbly stated, I know it usually takes a while for my research. And him and his son walked away, went over to the holster wall. I don't recall any interaction with them once they walked away from the counter.
Okay. So before you helped them, before the defendant pointed to the 9mm SIG, did he shop around at all, or did he just point to that gun?
As I came out of the office, they were right at the showcase with that gun. That was the only one he picked out.
Now, for this gun, the 6 hour, did he pay with cash or credit card?
I did not finish the transaction, but through what I saw, observed from the office side of it.
Sure. As your role as an office manager, were you able to tell us?
Yes, it was
Okay.
cash,
Okay. And how were you able to make that determination?
through receipts.
I'm going to show you Exhibit 39. This is a portion of a firearms transaction record. Zoomed in so you can see it.
It's almost like he really wanted that gun for himself, so he
This
bought
is
it
the-
for his son.
So I'm going to show this to you. This is the 3-page document. What have I just handed you?
The application,
Okay, that's the 4473.
yes,
So we seem to be referring to the same thing as either a 4473, a firearms transaction record, or an application. Is that right?
yes,
Okay. So what we're looking at on the screen here, is that a zoomed in portion of that application?
yes,
Thank you. Now, part of this application indicates the number of questions that the applicant has to answer yes or no. Would that be right?
correct.
Okay, so if you can see on the screen, under box 21, there's questions A, B, C, D, and E.
Yes.
Tell us what these are.
So these, so A is asking, are you going to be the one to leave with the gun? Yes, and then the other ones, are you a felony, military, any drug, depressant, questions of that kind of sort.
Okay, so A says, are you the actual transferee / buyer of the firearm listed on this form? And any continuation sheet, ATF form 5300.9A. And then it has a bolded warning. What does that say?
You are not the actual transferee buyer if you are acquiring the firearm on behalf of another person. If you are not the actual transferee buyer of the license, cannot transfer the firearm to you.
And he checked yes, that it was for him.
Yes,
B is, are you under indictment for any felony? Check no to that.
right,
C, have you been convicted in any court, including military court, of a felony? Check no for that. D, are you fugitive? You also check no for that.
correct,
E, are you an unlawful user of or addicted to marijuana or any other depressant, stimulant, narcotic drug, or controlled substance? With a warning, the use or possession of marijuana remains unlawful under federal law guidelines, regardless whether it's been legalized or decriminalized for medicinal, recreational purposes in the state where you reside. You check no to that.
correct.
And this is the same form that was filled out by James Crumbly every time he made a purchase from the store,
Yes,
and he answered the questions in the same way.
yes.
Now, you don't do any research as a office manager of a federal firearms licensed dealer to investigate if what he said in these questions are true or false. Is that right?
No.
Oh, here's the front of the form here. This is the same exhibit, exhibit 39.
Yes.
Okay. Now, did the 6 hour come in a plastic case?
Yes, it did.
And this case itself does not have a locking mechanism, is that correct?
The case, no.
Okay. And are you able to identify if this was in fact the case sold to James Crumbly with that 6 hour?
Yes.
May I approach? This is exhibit 41. It has been stipulated to. So what are we looking at on the side of this case here?
You're looking at, are we talking the bold, the black?
Right here. SN, what does SN mean?
So that's the serial number,
Okay,
which is written in box 3 on the application.
okay,
But I can also identify it as to the stock number that I put on each box when a firearm comes in. So 21-106-20 matches up to the box.
okay. So you can be sure that this is in fact the case that the gun was sold.
Yes,
So you mentioned that this case itself doesn't have its own locking mechanism.
no,
When you sold the gun to James Crumbly on November the 26th, did he fill out the trigger lock statement?
he did,
And did you as well?
I did,
Okay. And in that trigger lock statement, did you indicate that a lock had been provided to
Yes.
Mr. Crumbly?
yes.
So first, I'm going to open this up because I have gloves on.
Sure.
Show the jury. In this case, it's provided, it has an insignia SIG on it.
Yes,
So this is provided by 6 Hour, the manufacturer of the gun?
yes.
Okay. What kind of lock was provided to Mr. Crumbly on November the 26th?
Cable lock,
And was that cable lock in fact provided to your store from 6 Hour?
yes,
So this is exhibit 40. This is the trigger lock statement from November the 26th, 2021. And this indicates that you did in fact provide him with that?
yes,
Okay. And it says, or a gun case or storage container that can be secured to prevent unauthorized access. So this doesn't have a locking mechanism on it, correct?
it does not.
Okay. So I'm going to show you now exhibit 97. Exhibit 97, specifically on the right part of the screen here, what do we see here?
You see the child handgun safety, we, the cable lock and the 2 clips.
And when you say the cable lock, was this cable lock and that pamphlet provided with James Crumbly when he bought the 6 hour on November the 26th?
Yes.
One moment, Your Honor. Oh, thank you. I don't know if I asked you or not, but this is the type of lock that was provided by Sig Sauer at the time this firearm was sold?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. No,
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Good afternoon, Ms. Beck.
Hi.
We know that you were working on November 26th of 2021.
Yes.
You were involved in the sale of the 6 hour 9mm to James Crumbly.
Yes.
In fact, you just testified about the beginning of that sale, correct?
Yes.
That you came out of the office,
Yes.
that you approached a different customer,
Yes.
then you approached Mr. Crumbly,
Yes.
who was standing at the counter.
Yes.
You testified that Mr. Crumbly knew which firearm he wanted.
Yes.
You recall that you had some conversation with Mr. Crumbly,
I did not have a conversation with him.
standing at the counter,
I approached him and asked if he need help.
and did you converse with him? Did you talk with him at all?
No, I did not.
You asked Mr. Crumbly which firearm he wanted to purchase, or if he
I
wanted to see anything,
asked if he need help and he said, yes, I want to see that.
and he indicated that, or I'm sorry, you indicated that you recognized Mr. Crumbly from prior purchases, correct?
Yes.
So you knew he'd been to the store before.
Right.
He knew which handgun he wanted, and he indicated to you that it was based on prior visits, if you recall.
No, he said he had his eye on that gun for a while, so that means he could been in the shop looking at it, could have been online looking at it. I don't know, I didn't inquire that.
You testified previously in this case?
Yes.
Specifically, you testified on February 24th of 2022.
Yes.
Do you recall your testimony on that day?
Yes.
Would it help to refresh your recollection to know exactly what you testified on that day as it relates to this question?
Sure.
Page 94. Lines 3 through 6. May I approach, Your Honor? Thank you. You can review the highlighted lines. You can look before and after if you'd like as well, and just look up when you're done reviewing it, please.
Is this what I'm saying?
Correct.
So this is saying what I just said?
May I approach?
Sure.
Thank you. And the question was, you do recall, however, that he was very clear that he wanted one handgun based on his prior visits to the store. Your answer was yes.
Yes.
hold on a second, Judge. Counsel didn't read the question before that.
Well, I guess you can follow up.
I'll do a redirect, that's fine.
There was also some discussion, if you recall, you testified that Mr. Crumbly said, you testified on February 24th of 2022 that Mr. Crumbly said he had his eye on that firearm for a few days, if you recall.
He didn't say a few days, he said quite some time.
Your testimony was that he had,
Hey,
that he
Sparkles.
said that he had his eye on it for a few days, if you recall that testimony.
Which page, Counsel?
Yes, page 88, specifically lines 3 through 4. He purchased the handgun that he pointed at and looked at, correct? The
Yes.
6 hour?
Yes.
You had no reason to believe that Mr. Crumbly was buying the firearm for anybody else.
No.
In fact, you said that the younger, you called him the younger guy who was there, was standing behind him,
Yes.
behind Mr. Crumbly, I'm sorry.
Yes.
You didn't see Mr. Crumbly having any conversations with that younger guy prior to approaching them at the counter, correct?
No.
At some point, you handed the sale off to, I think you said Chris.
Yes.
If you recall, you didn't see any conversations between Mr. Crumbly and that younger guy about the purchase of that firearm after you handed off the sale,
I
correct?
did not.
You didn't hear Mr. Crumbley say anything to the individual that he was standing with about buying the handgun for him?
No,
And we identified, you later learned that the individual with him was his son.
yes,
You didn't hear or see his son say anything to Mr. Crumbley about that's the one I want.
no,
In fact, you saw no exchange between them whatsoever.
none.
You testified that provided with the sale of firearms at your store is also an ATF handgun notice, correct?
Yes,
And in that ATF handgun notice, are you familiar with that pamphlet, the safety notice?
yes,
We can see it in the picture, correct?
yes.
You've reviewed that previously? Not
Yes.
necessarily in connection with
Yes.
this case, but as part of your employment?
Yes,
In general, it's unlawful for a minor to possess a firearm. Is that correct?
yes,
There are certain circumstances where it is not unlawful, correct?
correct.
And specifically 18 USC 922X sub 3 sub A sub I, which is in that pamphlet, says that a minor can temporarily possess a handgun under certain conditions. Do you know
Judge, I'm
that?
just going to object to the form of the question to this witness. We do have a special agent from the ATF testifying later in this trial. I don't think this witness is equipped to testify to the content of the pamphlet, only that it was actually given.
Well, the pamphlet is an evidence.
It,
right?
it will be. It's not yet, but it will be.
Okay, so, well, I mean, I get, have you seen that excerpt in that pamphlet?
I mean, not all the numbers, I mean, I couldn't recall all the,
I mean, asking Ms. Back to recall the specific site from the United States Code is a little bit difficult for her.
I'll ask her for the content then, Your Honor. I was trying to be complete in my question, but I'll just ask her if she recalls the content. You know that pamphlet directs that a minor can temporarily possess a handgun under certain conditions, correct?
Are you familiar with that part of the pamphlet?
I'm sorry, read that.
Yes, that a minor can temporarily possess a handgun under certain conditions.
Yes,
Included in that is target practice, correct?
yes,
To your knowledge, and this is just your knowledge, I'm not asking you about anything that you may know about anything after they left the store. But while they were in the store, to your knowledge, you never saw Mr. Crumbley allow his son to possess that Sig Sauer without his permission.
No.
Or his supervision.
no,
Based on your knowledge of the law, and this is just your knowledge of the law, it is not illegal for Mr. Crumbley to allow his son to use that Sig Sauer or any handgun at a shooting range.
No.
Or for Mr. Crumbley's son to handle the firearm while at home if Mr. Crumbley is supervising him.
As an object to the form of the question, she's talking about, that's two different things.
Yeah, well, you can't ask her if it's legal or illegal, but you can ask her if she's familiar with what was in the pamphlet. If that's in the pamphlet, she's familiar with it, she can testify.
Correct, Your Honor. That was a continued question of based on your knowledge of the law. I'm asking her about her knowledge.
Okay, now I'm going to object to the relevance, Judge. She's an office manager for the store that sold the firearm. Asking her what her knowledge of the law is not appropriate, Judge. It's an improper question.
Yeah, why does her knowledge of that law, why is that relevant?
Your Honor, I would think that as somebody who's an office manager of a firearms store, that she would have knowledge of firearms laws.
Okay, but she might, but why is it relevant to these proceedings? I think you have an ATF guy, right?
I can ask him as well, Judge.
Okay. Yeah, her knowledge of the pamphlet, because she reviewed it and gave it to Mr. Crumbley, would be relevant, but I don't think her knowledge of the law is relevant to these proceedings.
Thank you, Judge.
Regarding the trigger lock statement. That was, which exhibit was that? You had a few of them, but we'll look at exhibit 40. Oh, let me- see if I made it work. Exhibit 40 is the trigger lock statement. This was the one specifically from November 26th of 2021, correct?
yes,
The trigger lock statement simply in bold, right above purchaser dealer. In bold, that statement indicates that signing of that form just shows that that sale was done in compliance with the law, correct?
yes,
That a cable lock or a locking box or a storage box was provided, correct?
yes,
There's nothing on there that's an acknowledgement that the purchaser is going to use the cable lock, correct?
correct,
There's nothing directing that the purchaser has to use the cable lock, is that correct?
correct,
There's nothing on that form indicating that you are required to do anything as the dealer.
Why would you
other
buy a
than
cable lock
provide
and not use
the
it?
cable lock, the trigger lock, or the case, correct?
correct.
in November of 2021, there were no laws governing whether somebody had to use a cable lock or a case or a safe or anything like that, if you know.
Judge, relevance. There's no relevance to this proceeding.
Response?
If she knows, Your Honor.
But it's not just personal knowledge, it's relevance.
I think there's still partners if you
Do know
check.
any law?
Correct, Your Honor.
Okay, well, I do know, are you familiar with anything like that? She doesn't know.
Thank you. Exhibit 36, which is the firearm transaction record. I believe this was for the Caltech. You indicated on direct examination that Mr. Crumbly did not receive the firearm the same day that he purchased the firearm, the Caltech.
Correct.
And this is the firearm transaction record. This is page 2 of that form, correct?
Yes.
And you indicated on direct that you didn't know if it was delayed or if there was some other reason. It could have just been taking a long time with the federal government. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Now, if the sale was delayed, there would be a box checked on this page 2, correct?
Yes.
In fact, it would be toward here, toward the bottom, where in 27C, correct?
Yes.
And this says proceed.
Yes.
So that sale was not delayed by the federal government, other than maybe it was just taking a long time. Is that fair?
Yes.
I want to go back to the purchase of the Sig Sauer 9mm. Exhibit 37 is the receipt. And I will put it up on the screen for you. This is the receipt of the Sig Sauer purchase on November 26th of 2021, correct?
Yes.
And on there, we see that the firearm is listed. It says 1 Sig Sauer SP2 2022.
Yes.
There's a serial number, SN/, and then it has numbers and letters.
Yes.
Has a price,
Yes.
Mr. Crumbly's contact information,
Yes.
his driver's license,
Yes.
shows it was paid, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Crumbly's signature, the
Yes.
stock number,
Yes.
the tax amount.
Yes.
There's no ammunition listed, correct?
I'm sorry?
There's no ammunition listed, correct?
Correct.
To your knowledge, James Crumbly did not purchase ammunition with the Sig Sauer on November 26th of 2021, correct? If he had, you would have had a receipt for it at your store, correct?
Yes.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Briefly, thank you. Ms. Beck, if the defendant's son would have walked in with the defendant and pointed at that 9mm and said, "Hey, Dad, that's the one I want," would you have sold it to him?
No.
Okay. And in fact, in your store, there's information posted that says, "Don't buy for somebody else."
Correct.
Okay. Now that the trigger lock statement, that is to ensure that the firearm dealer provides the tool to make it safe to the buyer of the gun. Is that right?
Yes.
Whose responsibility it is to actually make the gun safe?
The buyer.
Thank you. Nothing further.
All right, I'm gonna allow you to step down and you're excused.
Thank you.
Thank you. Your lunches are here. So it's time to stop. Can I ask you to come back at 1 o'clock? Is 1 o'clock okay? That's enough time? All right, please do not discuss the case with each other or anyone else. Be careful who you come into contact with in the courthouse. Don't look at any kind of media, social media, newspapers. Don't do any research. Don't text or Google about the case. All right? All right, we'll see you back at 1 o'clock.
All rise for the jury.
That must be a welcome thing for them to hear. Your lunches are here. Just be like, oh, thank God. Yeah,
Okay, 1 o'clock.
Yes,
Do you know-
sir.
Do you know who you're calling next?
We're not sure because we are way ahead of schedule, Judge, so we need to make some phone calls.
We are just all back there. All right. All
we
right.
are way
See you
ahead
then.
of schedule.
Thank you.
So I would agree this lawyer is better in general than Shannon Smith because she doesn't make everything about herself so far. You know, we don't hear all the dramatics and the theatrics and but she does speak extraordinarily fast and loud. And you can see that she has the propensity to be aggressive is sitting right there. And sometimes it's helpful to the client to be aggressive. Sometimes it's not. But I have a question for the chat. They're referring to this handgun as a 6-hour handgun, a 6-hour 9mm handgun. What does the 6-hour refer to? I know nothing about handguns or about guns whatsoever. And I know that people in the chat do. So what does a time reference? Sig Sauer? Oh, Sig Sauer, not 6-hour. Got it. Okay. Thank you. I knew you would know. I knew somebody else would know, and good thing Lucy is here. Good thing it's Sig Sauer. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So I've been looking for answers on this whole thing about James Crumbley's restricted communications. And I think this possibly might give us some
Now,
clues.
as we wait for James and
This might give us some clues.
Jennifer Crumbleigh to be placed under arrest, we are speaking to a Florida woman who says she knows them quite well. She is telling 7 Action News that the Crumbleys, along with their son Ethan, deserve maximum punishments for any and all of their roles in the tragedy at Oxford High School. 7 Action News reporter Kimberly Craig has more on what she had to say.
We're learning more about James and Jennifer Crumbley from a woman who has an 18-year-old son with him. Michelle Cobb says he left them strapped for cash and struggling to make ends meet.
He's a piece of he really is. The whole time of my son growing, my son is 18 years old now. And you know, I cried the moment he turned 18 because I thought all of this hell is over as far as dealing with my son's father.
And the father of her 18-year-old son, Eli, is James Crumbley. James is also Ethan's father. And Michelle Cobb says it was Jennifer Crumbley who made her son's life unbearable when he would visit his dad and half-brother Ethan. She says it was Jennifer who ran the show.
Jennifer was a monster. She could do no wrong, and she was right about everything.
Prosecutors say it was Jennifer Crumbley who posted the picture of the pistol on Instagram, writing "Mom in Sunday," testing out his new Christmas present.
They pretty much gave him whatever he wanted.
Cobb says while James and Jennifer gave Ethan whatever he wanted, it was a hopeless struggle to get James to pay even $67 a week in child support when he was making 6 figures.
My son is 6'3" and 240 pounds. Do you know how much $67 a week pays?
More than ever, she's thankful Eli left the Crumbleys' Oxford home right before the start of the pandemic. And Eli says he never even saw any guns when he was here.
The first thing that came to my mind when all of this happened was how thankful that I was that my son was not there.
Cobb says she's heartbroken for the families whose children were killed and those injured. And she says Ethan and his parents must be held accountable for their roles in the tragedy.
I hope they get the maximum, honestly.
Kimberly Craig, 7 Action News.
All right, thank you so much.
That's uncontroversial.
Oh, maybe we'll stay right here because this is the closing arguments in this trial that we've been talking about. I'm going to stick right here.
That's what happened. We know that because a neighbor happens to have a video that shows these things. The next thing that you see on that video is that Destiny then walks inside the house. She goes first. She walks in at 8:43:28. She walks inside her home. It's going to be the last time that this little girl goes into her home. And she's followed quickly thereafter by Miss Halligan, who is carrying it. So Destiny goes in, Miss Halligan goes in. And then there are several minutes that this person who is in this car is sitting outside. It's not a situation where that person comes and helps her with the kids, or helps her in and just gives her money real quick because they owe her for car tinted window. No, that person And they wait several minutes for her to get in with her children. 8:46:05. You might have to watch the video more than one time. It's a little difficult to see. You will see right before 8:46:05 that the door is closed, right here. And at 8:46:05, there's activity and that door is opened. And I submit to you what's happening there. So Ms. Hamilton is calling that person. Okay, it's okay now to come into your house. And then the person in the car walks up to the house and goes in. You all will see in that video, you've already seen the individual goes in at 8:46:43 and remains in that house till 8:47:47, which is 63 seconds. 63 seconds. And the reason that's important, ladies and gentlemen, is because the defendant doesn't know about this video when she's talking to the police in Michigan. The defendant doesn't know that the comings and goings of the people at the house has been recorded.
But I don't believe there's any testimony about when Ms. Hamilton knew that video.
This is final argument.
Ms. Hamilton-
Gotta be within the record.
Ms.
Okay,
Hamilton
your
did not
objection's
see that
done.
video until the second interview, when the police come in with their laptop and show her portions of that video. When she makes her initial statements, she has no idea that what happened at that house has been recorded. And that there's only 63 seconds that this person is in there. And that's important. That's important. Because it shows that her stories about what's happening inside the house are not true. Are not true. She can't come into this courtroom and say, oh, there's this fight with Anton, and there's this big struggle with the gun, and all these things that are happening. She can't say that. It's not true, first of all. But it's not backed up by the video that you all were able to see because the neighbor happened to have the video camera next door to 502 Folsom Drive. You all saw in that video that person comes in calling, walks away calling. And then what's the next thing that happens? The defendant exits her home. She does that at 8:48:52. She leaves her home. She leaves her two children inside her house, unattended, which is fine to do, unless you have a loaded firearm in a place her child can easily access. That is negligence to leave your house. Leave your 2-year-old and your 5-year-old in your house, and there is a loaded firearm easily accessible. That is the definition of negligence. And she wants you to think, and we'll get to this in a minute, she wants you to think, oh, that gun's up in the top of the closet. Or that gun's somewhere else. The child had to have gotten on the stool and reached up to the closet and gotten the top. That's not where that gun was. Think about what's just happened. I submit to you that what's just happened, consistent with what we heard about Ms. Hamilton, is that there is a drug transaction that happens. That person waits outside for 3 minutes so that she can get her kids into the house and out of the way, so that he can come in or she can come in, buy some pills. She has that gun there when this transaction happens. We'll heard investigator. And I've heard him testify numerous years of law enforcement experience about how drug transactions happen quickly, and that often there are firearms there for the protection of the person that's selling the drugs or the person that's selling. And I submit to you that's why the gun was on there. And the person responsible for that gun and where it was, it's not Destiny, it's not Gavin, it's not these law enforcement officers, that's one's to blame for everything that happened. The person responsible for where her gun is that night is this lady, Ms. Howard. Ms. Hamilton leaves her home, 8:48:52, returns after she moves her car. You all saw that on the video. She moves her car. Takes a couple minutes to do that, and then she goes back inside. After she gets in the home, there's about 3 minutes before she calls 911. Here is the portion of the video where she is calling 911. And this is important. It's important because when she calls 911, what is she doing? What are her actions? First of all, it's important to note that when she calls 911, her reaction to her child that has just been shot and who is mortally wounded, her reaction to that is not to get on the phone and tell the 911 operator exactly what's happened. Her choice, her decisions, her actions, her words to the 911 operator are lies. She decides. This detective doesn't make her say anything to 911. Detective Warwell doesn't make her say anything to 911. Ms. Howington is responsible for her actions and for her words. And her immediate response to her child being shot in the chest, her immediate response is to get on the phone and call 911 and start spinning a story. Start blaming it on someone else. And why? Why? Ask yourself, why would she do that? Why would she do that? Ms. Howington lies to 911 and spins this web of lies because she's trying to protect Gary. She does these things because she's trying to protect herself. She's trying to protect Robin Howington. And she knows right away, when she's on the phone with 911, right away, that leaving her gun out and allowing her children access to her gun is her fault. And it's tragic, ladies and gentlemen. You will not hear the state say if she purposely shot her child or she wanted this to happen. That's not what we're saying to you. What we are saying to you, and what the proof shows in this case, is that Destiny died because of her negligence. This was an avoidable death. And Ms. Howington is responsible for the death of this child, as sad as it is. So let's talk about this 911 call. What I'm going to show you is the clip of the house outside synced with the 911 call.
On Saturday, September 14, 2019, at 8:53 p.m. with a GMT offset of negative 240 minutes, agent ID. Extension is 202.
I apologize for the loss. I have not been shown this demonstrative piece that is linking two separate incidents so that I could test myself whether or not it's directly linked up.
This final argument, both of these pieces of evidence are in the record. Overruled.
On Saturday, September 14, 2019, at 8:53 p.m. with a GMT offset of negative 240 minutes, agent ID. Extension is 202. I had an emergency. This dude was just at my house and my fucking daughter shot me. Please hurry. I'm the smallest people off the drive.
What, she just got shot right now?
Yes.
Who did it? The guy that just walked into your door?
Yes.
Okay. what's your name, ma'am?
Robin,
Robin, okay, where's your daughter at, ma'am?
she's on the couch, she's on the couch.
Where did you shoot her at? In the arm?
It's in my chest.
Okay. We're on our way, I've already sent it, Robin, we're on our way now, she's laying on the couch.
What do I need to do? What do I need to do?
Oh, come on, Miss Robin, let you speak with Mandarin, sir. The guy who did that, his white legs are Spanish.
He was black.
Okay, what was he wearing?
He had a black shirt on.
Okay, did he say anything when you guys opened the door?
She goes back in,
No.
Okay.
and you can hear
It's
Gabby.
My
over.
baby's just like in your door. Oh my God, please come down. Please come
We're
down.
not, we're on our way, Miss Robin, let me speak to the ambulance, so let me tell you what to do, we're trying to get us a bill for 1 minute for him.
Oh my God, yes.
He on foot, in the car, Miss Robin.
He was in the car, he was in a black bike, so I opened up the door. Hey, Martina, I guess it's an emergency. Doctor, new Boston Dog. Okay, telephone number 951-8096. Yes, ma'am. Okay, I already have an ambulance on the way there. Tell me exactly what's going on. I had a man that just came to the fucking door, man, and he fucking, I don't know what the hell happened. The door was unlocked, and he came in here, and he fucking shot my daughter, dude, and she's laying here, and she's not fucking breathing, dude, please come. She's not breathing? No. Okay, do you want to try to take CPR? Please, just come on, just to talk about everything. She is breathing, she is breathing. She is breathing? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, how old is she? She's 5. How old? 5. 5? Yes. Okay. I've got help on the way. I've been on the way since you very first call, okay? Is that how you're crying? No, that's my son. That's your son. Okay. Yes. Okay. They're coming to you as fast as they can, I promise. Okay, you said she is breathing. Is she able to speak to you at all? Is she conscious at all? No. No. Destiny. Oh my God, I can't believe this shit. Okay, and you have no idea who it was that shot her? No, I didn't know. My God, was like, okay. They're here. They're here now. Okay, all right, go talk to them. Okay. Okay, bye-bye.
That 911 call ends. This is a small point, but something that I want you all to consider as well. Now, when the defendant was on the stand, she testified that when the officer came into the house, which he's not left his car yet, you all saw, his car is pulled up, he's not gotten out yet, he's not walked in the house. She testified on the stand yesterday that she's on the phone with 911 when the officer comes in. That's not true. Again, it's a small point. She's on the phone at this point when the officer comes in. Okay. So let's go back and let's talk about this 911 call. So in the 911 call, as I said, her first reaction immediately after this happens is to blame this on someone else. You blame it on an unknown black male that came into the house and shot her daughter. And she says on the stand yesterday that the reason that all these lies comes out is because she wants to protect Gavin. Let's talk about that for a second. She wants to protect Gavin. But what does that mean? She doesn't want Gavin to know, she says, that he shot his sister. Does that really make sense? Does that really make sense? First of all, Gavin's 2 years old. There's one of two things that are going to happen. He's either going to remember this or he's not. If Gavin remembers what happened, there's nothing she can say or do that's going to change that. If Gavin doesn't remember, he gets older and he doesn't remember this. She can talk to him about, she can decide, big family secret, we're not gonna talk about it, he never knows about it. Or she could decide, tell him the truth about what happened. And to say to him, Gavin, you were 2 years old. There was a gun that was not secured in the house that you got. And this is mine. She can say that. That's not what she chooses to do. She doesn't want to take responsibility for her actions. She absolutely doesn't. And her course of conduct from the 911 call forward blatantly shows that Ms. Howington does not want to take any responsibility for anything that happened to her. Any responsibility. Instead, not only does she lie to the 911 operator, she gets rid of the gun. She hides this gun that was used to shoot this gun. She takes it outside while on the phone with 911, while her daughter is in the house having been shot. It's more important for her to leave that house and to put that gun outside in the dark. You can see the gun in this picture. Remember, the officer testified because he has a really bright light on his hand. Those first set of pictures where he's come around that corner, you can see just how dark it is. Just how dark it is back in that corner of the house, the side of the house. She takes this gun that was used to shoot this little girl. Her first reaction is to take this gun and take it outside and hide it under a bush. Why would she do that? She's conscious of her own harm. She knows that she is the one that has been negligent. Officer Cummings gets there at 8:56:15. You all recall from his testimony that he approached cautiously because he just knew there was a shooting and he didn't really know very many more details about what was happening. You all remember he was our second witness that we had that testified. Officer Cummings testified that he got to the house, approached the door cautiously, and that he went inside. He says that when he went inside, that he sees the defendant sitting on the couch. And he says, has anybody been shot? What's going on? And that's when Officer Cummings sees Destiny's feet on the armrest of the couch.
They're not government, if you could speak up just a little bit, please.
He sees this little girl, he grabs her, he takes her outside, immediately gets her to an ambulance. And that's his testimony about what happened. He gets there, he asks, is anyone hurt? She points to Destiny. And remember, he also said that it was eerily quiet. So typically when he arrives at a scene like this, people are come this way or this is where she is, and the defendant's not doing it. So she's sitting there, she's pointing to her eyes. She's thinking, holy crap. I met my run. She starts feeling self-preservation. So let's talk about her next set of actions, because they say, again, a lot about her mindset, a lot about what she's thinking, her deception, her lies. They are not, as the defense attorney wants you to believe, something that is caused by these officers in this case. They happen before anybody even gets there. And they continue from the point where she calls 911 the whole way up to the end of the last interview. She is not truthful about what happened. Why? Why is she not truthful? Again, it's because she knows that she's responsible. She was negligent. She speaks to officers as they arrive on the scene. This is one of the officers' videos that you heard. I'm going to play this portion where she's describing.
Let them do their job, that's what they're trying to do. Okay, well, what about you? We got officers out, the officer right now is a, Chrysler 300.
She says there was a black car there with dark tinted windows. So she begins this weave of trying to look for this other person who killed her child. This unknown person that's coming to the house, and they have a black car that has tinted windows. You know what? When she told that to Detective Riddle, and she talked about how she's sitting on the couch and she's looking the whole way down and she can see through the dark the whole way to the car, and she can describe that it's a black Chrysler and it has dark tinted windows, he thinks, you know what? That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't ring true. He believes at this point in time that he has a grieving mother, but he also is aware that what she's saying doesn't make sense. Doesn't make any sense. And he gives her the benefit of the doubt. He asks her, tell me more information about this unknown individual that's coming to your house. And she does. She provides additional details about this person. But this detective, obviously, when in this house and faced with this statement that this woman has seen through the first room, through the second room, out the door, out through the dark, to a car that she says is out there, and she can describe it as a black Chrysler with dark tinted windows. Because it doesn't make any sense. And it's not true. It's not true. We know that now. It's not true. What does she say to Detective Riddle at the scene?
I was in there. All in there. We just got home, I was ready to feel.
When you say you all, it's you and your dog?
Yes.
Okay, you're here.
And the door was open like it is now.
Okay, and what happened?
And he just came in here, and we were all sitting right there.
Who's he?
I don't know who he is.
You don't know who this
I don't
guy
have
is?
a clue. I've never seen him in my life.
And he walks in here. Hey, will you show me just so I can know?
Yes. He's
Sure.
laying on the couch. I was sitting right beside her, he was sitting right here. I was sitting right here, she was laying right here, and he just shot. And then it was like he was surprised. I don't know if he was trying to shoot me or what, but he shot her.
Where were you sitting?
I was right here,
And she's right here?
right here.
Right here.
She was laying down right here.
And you were sitting down the whole time he comes in and pulls the
Yes. I didn't even realize he was in here until it was already.
And what happened? How many times did he shoot?
One time.
One time. And when he shot, what happened? Did he say anything?
Nothing. He looked like he was surprised because she just went limp.
So again, her statement there to Detective Riddle gives details about this event that happened that absolutely didn't happen. She provides, and then later on she tells him, yeah, I looked down the hallway and I can see that it's a black car with tinted windows. And more importantly, what else does she say to Detective Riddle? I think it was meant for me. I think it was meant for me. So the fact that these officers are investigating this case as if it's a homicide is not just because they want to do that. It's because of her actions and what she says. That's why they're investigating this case like a homicide. She's transported to UT Hospital. What's she doing on the way to UT Hospital? She's texting Callie. I need you to get that gun, Callie, for real, ASAP. It's on the side by the air conditioner, in the bush. My phone is about to die. They are taking me to UT. Just texting her boyfriend and saying, go get that gun. That is what is most important for her at this period of time when she's on the way back. Because again, self-preservation. She knows she's done something.
We're just watching this trial while the James Crumbley trial is on a lunch break. The only thing that's interesting with James Crumbley is that his communications have been restricted because apparently he was threatening somebody, but we don't know who, we don't know what the threats were or anything like that. And we're watching this trial right now because it's closing statements, and the people in the court some of them are somewhat characters, but the sound is terrible.
Is to make sure somebody goes and gets that gun. And she knows that these text messages are in her phone. And then she also makes a phone call. You're going to hear her say, can you do that, please? Can you do what I just texted you? Can you do that, please? She calls Joaquin at 9:26. You all will recall his testimony. He says he remembers receiving a phone call. He couldn't hear what she was saying, but this is the call that she made. And she's saying, can you do that, please? Can you do what I just texted you? And what she's just texting him is to go get the gun and avoid the police while you're doing it. We get to UT Hospital now. And again, the state is not saying that this is something that's not true. But what we are saying is that her actions that day are very clearly showing that she is conscious of her wrongdoing. She knows that she has been negligent. And she is desperate at this point in time for the police not to figure out what's going on. She's so desperate, ladies and gentlemen, that when she's in the bathroom, she tries to give her phone to a complete stranger. To Marty Sands.
That's one of
She
the
has to give her
craziest
her phone.
things
She
I've ever
stands
heard.
outside the stall. You all remember Marty Sands. She stands outside the stall and waits for her to come out and says, take my phone. Take my phone. Miss Sands is like, I'm not going to do that. So what does the defendant do after that? She runs her phone underwater. She breaks her phone. She wants to say, oh, my phone was broken before, and that's fine. Even taking her at her word, at a minimum, she took her phone, tried to give it to a stranger, and then ran it underwater. Because she knows what's on these text messages, ladies and gentlemen. She doesn't want the police to know that she's tried to hide the gun. She's done this and messed it up so much that Officer Payton, who had to come and testify, had to reconstruct it, let it dry out for hours, put a new screen on the phone before he could look into the phone and see what's there. She continues with this. Next thing that we know that happened is that Ms. Howington is taken to the police station. She is in an interview room, and she is now going to explain what's going on there at the house. So I want to go through her stories because I submit to you that her stories change constantly. Constantly. Let's start with who shot Destiny. Let's talk about her different stories about who shot Destiny. And remember, the reason this is important is because the reason she has all these different stories is because she wants to deflect anything from showing that she is responsible. That is her goal in talking to the police that day, is to deflect from what she has done. And so she blames multiple people for this shooting. In fact, the 911 call, I'm not going to play again, but you heard, she says, this dude was just at my house, and her words, And my fucking daughter just got shot. He was black. He's in a black Chrysler. I had a man that just came to the fucking door. He came in here and he shot my daughter. That's her first story. Her statement to Detective Riddle, which we just played. He just came in here and we were all sitting right there. I don't know who he is. I don't have a clue. I've never seen him in my life. She was laying on the couch. I was sitting right beside her. He, meaning Gavin, was sitting right here. I don't know if he was trying to shoot me or what, but he shot her. I didn't realize he was in here until it was already too late. Those are her two stories, the two things that she says before the investigators speak to her. And then she comes into the interview room. She comes into the interview room and she talks to the detectives in this case, and this is what she says.
We can get that done if you tell us the truth and be helpful with us, right?
I told you, we just came home from the park and I thought somebody was following me. And so I went down the alley, because the alley was with the neighbors where you took Gavin, or where whoever took Gavin, and nobody followed me. And then I didn't think nothing about it. She was laying on the couch. I turned Netflix on for her, and Gavin was sitting right beside me. I have a roast still cooking right now in the crock pot. I was getting ready to make the plates, and somebody came to the door, and I was sitting on the, whatever you want to call it, the footrest. And she was like this far away from me, laying there, because I was asking her, what else do you want? Because the only thing I had in the crock pot was the roast and carrots. And I let them choose what they want to eat because her dad is a vegan. And so she's somewhat picky about what she eats. And I didn't even hear the door open because it was just the screen door. I had the other door still open because my purse was in the car still because I had to carry Gavin in because he didn't have shoes on. So, whoever, only thing I seen was a black dude come in, and I heard a gunshot, and then I looked at my baby, and then I looked at him, and his eyes got big as I don't know what. Like, I feel like it was meant for me.
What kind of car did it in?
It was a black Chrysler. I'm almost sure it was. I'm not 100% sure, but I can see, like, out the door from where the foot thing was.
So you never went outside to see the car?
No, I got a towel. I got a towel and put it on her.
That's her first story. Next, she starts talking about these kids at the park. In her words, this may be something. Let's see what she says. This may be something, she tells the detectives.
Yes.
Y'all leave the park.
Well, actually, I'm gonna be honest with you. These three boys, there's like this may be something, I don't know. But these three Mexican boys, there's like a fence or whatever, and there's like a bench right beside the fence. And they kept on crawling over it, going to this building that's right beside of the park. I don't know what it is. I have no idea. So the boys were making comments about my breasts. So I said, you guys aren't old enough to be talking to me like this, especially in front of my kids. I was like, you're already teaching my son bad things because he's trying to crawl over the fence too. So I went and pulled up because when I walked back up to them, they ran in and crossed the fence again. And when they crossed the fence, I drove up there to see if their parents were there. Well, their parents was there, and it was two Mexican men. And I said, you need to teach your sons to be more respectful because they were being very disrespectful and talking to me in ways that I didn't appreciate, especially in front of my daughter.
So did you drove off after that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, baby.
So she tells the police when she's talking to them that it may be something, there's this thing going on at the park that involved these three Mexican boys. She knows that has nothing to do with this. She knows that. Nothing. But instead, she starts talking about these other people that it could be. Here's her next statement.
Maybe through the alley?
Yeah, because I felt somebody was following me.
So you thought somebody was following you from the park?
No, I don't know from the park. I wasn't paying that much attention because they were complaining that they were thirsty and they were hungry and all this. So I was just consoling them, telling them we're going to be home, the roast is done. Basically, Destiny was the one that was talking.
So when did you first think that somebody was following you?
When I turned, left off Oak Ridge Highway onto Shaw Road.
So what kind of vehicle was that?
I'm not sure, it was a dark colored car, I'm not sure.
So you think a dark colored car was
Yes,
following
sir.
at that time?
Yes, sir.
But you go straight on home.
Yeah, but I went through the alley, and when I went through the alley, nobody was behind me, so I didn't think nothing of it.
So when did you, so this dark colored car that you thought was following you, when did you not see it following
When we stopped at the red light on Callahan, they went behind me.
you? Callahan.
Central,
At Central,
Callahan Central by the Wildwoods.
so right there by the Wiggles and I guess a couple of restaurants and stuff that you didn't see it anymore at that point.
Where Asian Cafe used to be, correct?
So you didn't see the car anymore at that point.
Correct,
And then you go on to your house.
correct.
And again, here she is telling these police officers who she has made them think that there is a homicide of this child about, I think we need to be looking into this other car that I believed all of it. When she knows this has nothing to do with anything that happened. Her next statement. She's going to start talking about Anton.
It pisses me
Now,
off
the
that
defense wants you to think, oh,
putting the blame on all these
the only
different
reason that she
people.
said was Anton is because these police officers overbore her will and made her second. That is just not true, ladies and gentlemen. They were looking at a story that wasn't making sense. Wasn't making sense to them. That some unknown person would just come and kill this child. And now they have her saying that she can see this black Chrysler from a place they know she can't do that. And then they have her trying to get rid of her phone.
Black guy in a black Chrysler,
And putting it under
Mexican boys. I mean, come on.
And so they look at what's available, the police reports, and they say there is a domestic history of this Anton guy. So to them, is this what this is about? And they ask her that. Now, does she have to say, oh yeah, I was Anton? Does she have to do that? No. No. Miss Howington is responsible for the things she does and the things she says. She could have told these officers, no, Anton has nothing to do with this. She chose not to do that. This is what she says.
So why didn't you tell us that earlier?
Because, I mean, this is his daughter too. I know that he killed her, but I just don't feel like he did it on purpose. I feel like he was trying to kill me.
So he was already there. What happens?
He tried to talk, he came in the house, and when he came in the house,
I think
I told him I didn't want to talk to him.
toddler brother
and
accidentally
he
did
went something else.
Vanessa,
Come on.
and I think she left the gun out and cocked and on the table, ready to go to happen.
He brought me back in with you.
Yes.
So this gun that Callie gave you, how long you had it?
Not very long.
And it was in the house tonight?
No.
That gun never was in the house tonight, is what you're saying. So, with that being said, if we told you there was a gun found outside, and we want to make sure that it's not the gun you said Callie gave you, would you mind giving us DNA so we can make sure it's not?
I don't understand what you're saying.
So there's a gun found outside.
Right.
You say Callie gave you a gun at some point.
Right.
We want to make sure that that's not the gun that Callie gave you. The way we do that is DNA. You mind giving us your DNA so we can make sure that's not the gun?
I'm saying Kelly did give me that gun. Yeah.
I know that.
Okay.
And you're saying you don't know where that gun is at now.
Correct.
Right. But there was a gun outside your house.
Correct.
So to make sure that that's not the same gun that Callie gave you, we'll run your DNA against the DNA found on that gun. Do you mind if we get DNA?
No,
so we
that,
do that?
I guess it is the gun that Kelly gave me, yeah. He told me he put it outside, he was supposed to put it in storage.
So now, first of all, she throws Anton completely under the bus. He came in and he murdered this child in cold blood. That's what she tells the officer. She goes so far as to circle him in a lineup circle his face and say, this is the person that killed my child. Now, is she doing that to protect Gavin like she wants you to do? Or is she doing that to protect herself? And then when the police confront her, because they've found out from the officers on the scene that there's a gun that's outside the house, she doesn't say, okay, I put it out there. She says, oh, there was a gun in my house. Is it the one outside? I don't know. And then she says, oh, Callie put the gun outside, which absolutely is the truth. We know that. So this story is Anton brings the gun inside. He leaves, comes back, Anton came into the house, leaves, comes back in with the gun, and then shoots Destiny. And we know that's not true because we've seen the video. Nobody comes in the house and leaves and comes back in. That just didn't happen. This is a complete lie. And then she changes her story yet again.
That's not true. But if one was there.
How are we supposed to believe that? Why would you not say that initially?
Because it's my baby. I don't know.
You're gonna charge a 2-year-old baby, so you're gonna charge a 2-year-old.
You think we're gonna charge a 2-year-old?
No. So now she's saying, Gavin got a hold of the gun. That's the honest to God truth. She's swearing this is what happens. And more importantly, she's saying Anton is still there. Why is it so important for Miss Howington to say that someone else is there? Why does she say Anton's still there, ladies and gentlemen? Why does she say that? Because she knows that if Anton was there, that's somebody she can blame. That's somebody she can blame for how that gun is out where a child can. And she is so desperate at this point in time to not be in trouble for her actions that she is willing to circle Anton's picture in a lineup and say that this person murdered her child. That's what she does. And when they say to her, after she changes her story, that this is, after she changes it and says to Gavin, hey, you almost had us arrest this guy for first-degree murder. What does she say about that? She doesn't say, oh, yeah, you're right, that's crazy. She doesn't show any remorse. She doubles down and talks about how much she doesn't like it. That's the mindset of this individual who's involved in this case. So here we have a story. Gavin got a hold of the gun. Antoine is there. That's going to change. Now we're on the following day.
To fix the roaster or whatever, or get it out to save minutes or whatever to, well, I didn't actually turn it off, but it was done, to do it like that. And Antoine came to the door, and he was screaming and hollering about Callie yet again. Like, I don't know what the hell he has against Callie, but he got to screaming and hollering about Callie, and we got to arguing, and we kind of tussled a little bit, and I asked him to please leave. And he was like, oh, I know what you're going to do. You're a police call, bitch. You're going to call the police, blah, blah, blah. So he left. And then when I went in the kitchen, Gavin went into my room, and Destiny was laying on the couch watching Netflix. And I came back and sat down, and I heard a shot. Was it?
So now in this story, Antoine had been there, there had been a scuffle, there had been a tussle. He leaves, and in this story, Gavin goes in the bedroom while she's in the kitchen, gets the gun, and then comes back in and shoots Destiny. And then here's her final story. This is the last thing that she tells the police on September 17th of 2019.
Okay. Was Antoine already there when we got home?
The neighbors said he had been
Remember when I said I want you to tell me stuff that you hadn't told me before?
there.
You need to tell me that.
He got out of the car all right.
Okay.
Speaking for. And I asked Destiny what she wanted to eat, and he kept trying to interfere. And so, and he don't like her to eat meat. So that was a problem right there. Anything that I do that he can find a problem with, it's a problem.
Mhm.
So he didn't want her to eat meat first off, so he started on that shit too. And he just continued to scream and holler and raise his voice. And he went, I thought he was leaving. He went in the living room, so I was like, please leave. But he didn't leave. And I don't know, I felt threatened because I didn't know what the hell he was capable of. I mean, he's beat me to the point where I was unconscious. And I ran got the gun when I got it. He got it from me.
Where was it good?
It was in the black bag on the back of the door.
She's in the black bag on the back door, you got it out.
On the back of my bedroom door, yes.
So now we still have, this is Anton's fault. What does she admit? What does she finally admit after blaming everybody else? In this version, she admits that she went and got the gun out of a black bag. Now, she still wants to throw in that this is Anton's fault and all this other stuff. But what did we hear yesterday? Anton's not even there. He's not even there. He doesn't have anything to do with this. But here in this version, she finally admits that she's the one that went into the bedroom and got the gun, not from the top of the closet, but from her purse that's on the back of the door. So I want to talk about not just her changing story of who did this, but I want to talk about some other things. And the reason that these things are important, ladies and gentlemen, is because what you are going to see and what you've heard in this case is a pattern of blaming other people and not taking any responsibility whatsoever until Miss Halliday is confronted with things that she cannot get away from. And then she finally says that she has some responsibility, just like she did here. She gives all these stories, and it's not till the last story, when again, she's not telling the whole truth. But in the last story, she finally says, I'm the one that went in the bedroom and got the gun. So now about where did the gun come from? And so it's important for her, because again, she knows she's negligent. It's important for her to tell the police that this gun is secure and put away and somewhere where a child shouldn't have access. So her story to the police is that this gun is in the top.
He knew where the gun was because he came in my room one day when he just showed up and he seen it in the closet when I was getting my clothes out to get dressed.
Okay, so how does that factor into tonight?
That's pretty much what it is.
So you telling me he went and got that gun and that's the gun he used?
And he threw it down after he shot his child. And you picked it up, and you took it out to the bush, and you've done something possibly with the shell casing,
No, I touched
so it's probably somewhere in your house.
So in that statement, she's saying that Anton gets the gun out of the top of the closet. She gives all these details about what's happening surrounding her. And then she changes that. The next thing she's going to say is that her 2-year-old gets a stool from inside of the living room, drags it the whole way through the room to her bedroom, climbs up on the stool, and gets the gun from the top of the closet. Because again, she wants the police to think that she has responsibly secured this gun, that she's put it in the top of the closet. Her kids shouldn't have access to it. That's not true. Here she's saying Gavin gets the gun out of the closet, and that she saw him take the stool across the room and do that.
Just put these squad on in here. Okay. You're stronger. You went through and tell us what happened prior to what happened when you encountered Woodward or Destiny's daddy.
Destiny was laying here. She was watching Netflix. And I was sitting here. And Dad moves it beside him. And he's already outside. He came in. And he started screaming down, and we got tussling. And the baby got that stool. We went into my bedroom.
This is still right here.
Yes.
Okay, you really want to show me? What was you gonna say? Before we leave, we'll get a picture of this.
Yes, sir.
Is that here? Hey, we need one of these stools, one of those bar stools right there. See them moving the stools? Where you on the road?
Did you see him moving the stool? Yes.
Did you put that stool back? What's the grid? As a 2-year-old. Well, never. The dugout from Cumberland Avenue, what's the grid? There's no way.
So in this version, she is saying that she saw Gavin get the stool, take the stool to the closet, climb up. I don't suppose she said she saw him climb up in the stool. What he would have had to do is climb up in the stool and get the gun from the top of the closet. That's the walkthrough that happened in September 4th, or early of September 15th. And so then we have her come in just a couple days later, September 17th of 2019. Here's what she says. The officer's going to ask her, did you see him get the gun out of the closet? Move the
You
stool.
saw him get the stool, now you're saying you didn't see him get the stool. So, there's,
I can make a mistake, correct?
you can make a mistake, but I would think that that wouldn't be, a mistake you made right there, right?
And so Detective Wardlaw says to her, you told us before that you saw him get the gun, or excuse me, saw him get the stool, and now you're saying that you didn't. She says, oh, I made a mistake. That's not a mistake. She is lying. And the reason it's important, as I've said before, for her to lie about this is because she knows that the police need to be thinking that that gun is in the top of the closet. Because that's the only way she's not negligent. And because of what she says, Gavin has to get measured. Officer Tonkin there, they've got a gun there, he's reaching up. He's 45 inches. He's not tall enough to reach a purse in the top of the closet. And then what does she say finally? Her last statement to the police. After she's blamed it on Anton, after she's blamed it on Gavin going in the top of the closet, what does she say?
Or arguing, and I got the gun and got it from me in childhood.
I got the gun. That's what she says there. I got the gun. Where did the gun come from, ladies and gentlemen? I should probably mention too, September 12th, a couple days before this is part of her story that she's telling. She starts with saying there's this tussle and all this other stuff that's happening with Callie and with Anton and her. And finally, this is her final version. She had said before different things, but this is the last thing she says about September 12th.
So, Callie never reported that.
Right.
Okay.
That Callie never pulled a gun on Antoine. It was her that pulled a gun on Antoine. She finally admits that well into this interview, September 17th. How does the gun end up outside? We've heard some of her explanations. I'm going to walk through the litany of things she says about this. First, she's like, what gun? I don't have a gun. I don't have a gun in the house. Watch this.
Did you want a gun? Never had a gun? So would it surprise you if we told you that gun was found outside the house? That would surprise you? Why not?
Yes, it was,
First, she says, no, I don't have a gun. I don't have a gun. That would surprise me. Then she says,
No,
Where's it at?
wherever you put it.
Callie had a gun.
Outside your house?
I guess that's where you put it.
Callie's the one that put the gun outside the house, is what she's saying. She comes up here on the stand yesterday and wants to say Callie's the one Hallie's the one that was negligent. Hallie's the one that took the gun in the house, and she didn't bother to look for it. Here she is playing Callie. What's next?
So between the time when the shooting happened, and he called 911, the police got there. What did you do?
I said, Darren, help us out, my baby.
You never like went outside, tried to get rid of anything? Because I told you, you know,
No, she never went outside. She never tried to get rid of anything.
I don't know, I guess he's the one that took it outside. I don't know.
She says Anton took the gun outside.
so why did you feel like you needed to take it outside?
I didn't realize that she was shot till after the fact.
And then finally she says she took the gun outside. But here she says, I didn't realize that she had been shot until after I took the gun outside, which we know is not true. Because she's taking the gun outside on the phone with 911. So she's finally admitting that she took the gun outside, but she's
Why would
still
she?
telling lies about how that
Why would she take the gun outside if she didn't know her kid was shot? Come on.
Well, listen to me.
You all will have these clips. I'm not going to belabor this point, but in this version, she says, I took the damn gun outside. I didn't know what to do. So she finally admits she took the gun outside.
Got no.
Simple fact of, was this gun used to kill Destiny? Was the gun that was used to kill Destiny? She tells lies about that as well.
Okay, so the gun that we found outside, that Kelly gave you, we test fire that gun. It's not gonna match anything with this.
No.
Have you ever even shot a gun before?
No.
So you don't know how to use a gun?
No.
So what's the chances that you were scared today, you had the gun, and you shot by mistake?
No.
That didn't happen?
No, sir.
You never got the gun until after you called 911 and you thought that you'd get in trouble for that.
Right.
So you're sticking with the fact that Antoine did this?
Yes.
So here she's saying the gun that's outside is not the gun that was used to kill Destiny, which we know is not true. Then she changes her story, but she's still blaming Anton.
Is that gun the murder weapon? I'm just asking. If it is, tell us it is. If it's the weapon he used now and you took it outside, tell me the truth. Is it the murder weapon? Because I think we've got ballistics and we're gonna be able to tell. I want you to hear it from your mouth. I want to hear it from the horse's mouth.
Do you want this gun?
Yes, if you want to go.
Yes, that's the gun that was used to kill Destiny, but she's still blaming Anton. And I submit to you what she's doing here, and throughout all of these interviews, as I said before, is that she makes up stories, she deflects everything from Robin Howington, and it's not until she is confronted with evidence or, like here, if we're going to do ballistics on this gun, that she finally tells the truth. The last thing I want to do, ladies and gentlemen, is I want to go through the elements of this offense. You all heard in voir dire that what the state of Tennessee has to prove in this case. We have the burden of proving this case beyond a reasonable doubt. We talked in voir dire about what that means. You all recall we talked about how the state has to prove the elements of the offense beyond a reasonable doubt. And so I want to walk through briefly the elements of the charged offenses in this case. The first offense that the defendant is charged with is felony murder. I anticipate you will hear from the court, and you all will have these instructions back in the jury room. So if you want to take notes, obviously you can, but you will have this information back in the jury room. Is that the defendant or one for whom the defendant is criminally responsible unlawfully killed Destiny Oliver. And two, that the killing was committed in the perpetration of or the attempt to perpetrate the alleged aggravated child neglect. That is, that the killing was closely connected to the alleged aggravated child neglect and was not a separate and distinct and independent event. And then finally, the defendant intended to commit the alleged aggravated child neglect. So those are the elements the state has to prove in this case beyond reasonable doubt in order for you all to find the defendant guilty of felony murder. We'll come back to that in just a second, because basically what this is that the state has to show the defendant or someone she's criminally responsible for unlawfully killed Destiny Oliver. And we know that that is the case here. And then also we have to prove the defendant intended to commit aggravated child neglect. And we have to prove the aggravated child neglect. And these are the elements for aggravated child neglect. First, that the defendant knowingly neglected a child, Destiny Oliver, so as to adversely affect her health and welfare. And ladies and gentlemen, the death of this child is an adverse effect on her health and welfare. It could be less. You can have aggravated child neglect where a child is seriously injured and not dead. But obviously, the ultimate adverse effect on your health and welfare is when somebody is deceased. And so clearly that element has been met in this case. That the act of neglect resulted in serious bodily injury to the child. Again, serious bodily injury is defined under the law to include death. And it's undisputed in this case that Destiny Oliver is dead. We have shown you beyond reasonable doubt that second element. And that the child in this case was 8 years of age or less. And we've heard testimony in this case that Destiny was 5 years old. We heard about her birthday, October, the exact date and the exact day. 5-year-old child. And so the state has proved in this case all of these elements. And we're going to ask you to find her guilty of aggravated child neglect. That's the second count. The third count is similar to the second count. She's not going to be punished twice for the same thing. But it's another theory of what happened. And under the law, the first element's exactly the same. The third element's exactly the same. But this time, because there's a deadly weapon involved, we're going to ask you to find her guilty because there is a deadly weapon that was used to accomplish this act, a firearm in this case. The defendant is also guilty of false report. She initiated a report or a statement to law enforcement concerning an offense or an incident within the officer's concern. And so there are many false reports in this case. But we are required to elect for you which specific false report that we're talking about so that we can have a unanimous verdict. And so in this particular case, we're going to ask for you all to focus on her report to Detective.
All right, Crumbly trial is back in session, so we're going to switch over. And here we are. So, and I'm telling you, to me, that is a clear guilty verdict in that other trial. That woman is guilty of negligent homicide or involuntary manslaughter in the death of her child. Negligent manslaughter. It was confusing at first because at first it seemed like they were trying to accuse the mother of actually shooting her child. But because, they were titling it, Who Shot Destiny? But now they're making it pretty clear that they're saying she was negligent. They're charging her with negligent homicide, basically. And I think it's pretty clear. I watched her testimony yesterday, her entire testimony, And she came across to me as somebody who very clearly loves her children, was taking care of her children, but in a very, very irresponsible and negligent way. She was a drug dealer. She had people going in and out of her house all the time to deal drugs. She did not know where that weapon was at any given time. And it appears that it was left out with the safety cap unlocked and the gun cocked. And it sounds like her 2-year-old son just picked it up and it discharged onto her 5-year-old daughter who was laying there watching Netflix. It's absolutely tragic. And this woman, who is a piece of work, her and her lawyer are 2 pieces of work. I'm pretty sure what they're asking the jury to charge on.
Your Honor, calling People versus James Crumblery, case number 22279-989-FH.
Thank you, Mark. Case on behalf of people.
Karen McDonald on behalf of People.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Marielle Lehman on behalf of James Crumblery, who's standing to my left.
Yes, sir.
Who's the next witness? Yeah, you do names.
Detective Joe Bryan.
Hey, Chef.
There's a button on the button. That's over here.
So apparently this trial is running well ahead of schedule. I wonder how many witnesses the state still has. I think they were really only scheduling to go for a week or so. So far, there have been 3 witnesses today. There was a gun shop owner. There was a crime scene investigator.
Detective Sergeant Joe Bryan, Judge.
Joe Bryan.
Did you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth so help you God?
I do, Your Honor.
All right, please step up and have a seat. And could you state your name for the record and spell your first and last name, please?
Joe Bryan, Joebrian.
Go ahead.
Sir, where do you work?
The Oakland County Sheriff's Office,
And how long have you worked with the Sheriff's Office?
29 years.
Okay. So tell me, sir, what do you currently do there?
I'm assigned to the Special Investigations Unit as a detective sergeant.
And what does the Special Investigation Unit in the Sheriff's Office do?
We handle major crimes, internal affairs, officer-involved shootings, anything major, we usually have our hands into it.
Okay. And that's run by Lieutenant Timothy Willis at the
Yes.
Auxiliary?
Yes, sir.
How long have you been assigned to the Special Investigative Unit?
Since 2011.
And prior to that, where did you work?
I was a detective sergeant in charge of our computer crimes unit for almost 8 years. Prior to that, worked at the jail, the road, general investigations on the road.
Okay. So all told, you said 29 years of law enforcement experience?
Yes, sir.
Sir, I'd like to direct your attention to November the 30th of 2021. Do you recall that day?
I do.
Were you working that day?
I was.
Were you made aware of the shooting at Oxford High School?
I was.
Do you recall how you were made aware of that?
My supervisor, Lieutenant Willis, called me on the phone.
And did you respond to the school?
Eventually, I was heading that way, then I got diverted.
And tell me what happened.
Lieutenant Willis called me and asked if I would go to the Oxford substation to attempt some interviews.
Okay. And we say attempt some interviews. Interviews of who?
The shooter, the responsible.
Okay, so the shooter was arrested at the Oxford High School on November the 30th and taken to where?
The Oxford substation.
Okay, so we say substation, so the sheriff's office being a rather large organization, there's different police stations of the sheriff's office within Oakland County?
Correct. Every township that contracts with us, we have a substation, like a mini police station at each contracted area, each township.
Okay, and when we say Oxford substation, that's what we're referring to?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you were made aware that the shooter was transported to that location?
Correct.
And you were sent there to do what?
Attempt to interview him.
Okay. And did you speak with the shooter?
I did.
Okay. Did you learn his parents' identities?
I did.
Okay. And what did you do with that information?
I called his dad and asked him to respond to the substation to talk to them.
Is his dad in court today?
Yes.
Can you point to him, describe something he's wearing today?
And he's sitting at the defense table and he has the headphones with a little white mouse on.
You got a reflected identification?
The record will reflect the in-court identification of the defendant.
Okay, so we had testimony from Edward Wogrowski regarding location data earlier today and yesterday that showed that James Crumbley arrived at the substation about 1:58 p.m. on November the 30th. Is that consistent with your memory?
Yes, sir.
Now tell us please what happened after, what did James Crumbley arrive? Did Jennifer Crumbley arrive as well?
Yes, they both arrived together.
Okay, and tell us what happened after they arrived.
My partner and I, Rob Miller, took him into an interview room to let him know what was going on.
Okay. And in the Oxford substation, when you took them to an interview room, is this room equipped with audio and visual recording?
Yes, it was.
Okay, and was that equipment operational on November the 30th?
It was.
Okay, and was that conversation between yourself, the defendant, and his wife, is that captured on audio and visual recording?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you've seen that recording before?
I have.
And that fairly depicts that conversation?
It does.
So this is Exhibit 301. I believe we do not have an objection to this, but is that correct?
Correct, no objection, Your Honor.
Yes.
May I pose to the jury, Judge?
Sure.
So as we wait for the,
You know if we need the sound adjusted.
thank you, Judge. Before I press play, the top right corner of the screen here reflects 14:58. The time is actually 13:58. Would that be correct?
That's correct.
And is that because of daylight savings?
I'm assuming.
Okay. So the actual time this begins is 1:58 p.m. on November the 30th.
That's correct.
So before you start, just identify everybody you see here.
I got my back with a bald head and a blue shirt. To my left is my partner, now retired Sergeant Rob Miller. One standing is James Crumbley, and the woman is Jennifer Crumbley, his wife.
Okay.
We have, obviously, we don't know all that happened after there was a lot going on. Our understanding, he wasn't involved in a school shooting. He was the one who did everything. He said he acted alone. That's basically the only thing we've asked him so far, because there's worried about other students, other people involved in this. I'll get some questions from you, or ask you some questions first before you even start talking to him. Sure, I hate to stop you. Is it possible for me to have a word? My mouth is blessed. Yes, super dry, very yellow. Say the first one.
There ain't be how is it not?
Yeah, we do not know. There are several people who've been shot. This is my perfect example. We'll get into it a little bit. We really need to talk to him. Of course, we can do that. You guys.
He was just terribly smart.
That's what I understand. But we'll talk about that.
He never done any dad.
Jennifer, what did you date of birth? Last name is also Crumbley. And James, what's your date of birth? Thank you.
Just gonna pause it for a second, just for where it was redacted because personal information was being discussed.
That's correct.
Okay. Personal identifying information.
Yes, sir.
Coming in very early, but I understand there's an issue just recently with him. This morning, what went down this morning? Well, he was driving, yes, serving the pitcher. He was doodling on a test for a practice test. Do you think you should have a lawyer? That's up to you. I think we probably should have a lawyer. I think we can speak to the cops. And we'll answer these. And here's our perspective right now. This thing is still very, very fresh. Right. People are still on their way to the hospital and such. We need to know what his state of mind is. Is there explosive devices anywhere? Is there other guns anywhere? Do you hide guns and ammunition, explosive devices? Are there any other victims? We need to know these things rapidly. I was in town. I saw all you guys go to Ontario. When I see five, I said, I headed to the high school, obviously couldn't get to the high school, turned into the minor parking lot, and I saw these kids standing outside. I'm trying to call my son, make sure he's okay, and he texted me and he loved me. He texted you that? And I said that there was an active shooter. 35 minutes before he called me, but I was freaked out because of the school. The situation. He was drawing that on the paper and the counselor called it down. So you made a bigger? I don't know. What did the text say? That it was active to me. Oh. From the counselor. I texted Ethan at 12:21, you okay? He said, yeah, just got back from lunch. I said, you know, you can talk to us, we won't judge. He said, I know, thank you, I'm sorry for that, I love you. I said, I love you too. And then, you okay? I heard that. And then, he told me about what's going on, and I freaked out when I drove here from work. And that's where we're at. That was at 12:21, and he was just getting back from lunch. But you guys had a meeting with the counselor this morning? Yeah. I did. What was it, the first hour or second one? What time was it? I got to school at 10:30, I don't know whatever. So it would have been earlier, first or second hour, I don't know. And what did he say? I mean, he said he was sorry. He's sorry. He just said, you know, is he having issues like being picked on? No. Well, I did not that we know of. His best friend, his parents just sent him somewhere to Wisconsin for an OCD rehabilitation. That was his only friend that he had. They come out all the time from out of school. Our dog, our Great Pyrenees, just passed away a couple months ago. My mom died back in April. So that's. So you got all the structures going on. They didn't. Of course, that's true.
Jennifer is in complete denial that anything's wrong. God, that noise.
They say, you guys go over this with them, like, what does that happen to them? They may ask them, what does that happen? No, the counselor said, you know, there's no. I didn't even, honestly, I didn't even, think about that, but, I mean, it's Ethan, Ethan's, he's a perfect kid, he doesn't do anything, he doesn't get in trouble at school, he doesn't, that's how. As you're going, what can happen? Just say so you're not. Where was it going to happen? It was hidden in our in the case, and the bullets were hidden in I raced home. And the guy that's under he saw the cops. After I saw the cops, after I found I was an active shooter, after what went on this morning, I immediately raced home and found the gun in his hand. That's when I called you guys. I called you guys right away and let you know.
Where, how far away is your guys' house from the high school?
Okay, right.
You live on the street.
I don't know that.
If he walks, he's gonna come
You
to
walk to school?
It's really right in the village.
So what we'd like to do, is talk to your son. And obviously you mentioned with our lawyer, he is totally entitled to one. That's gonna be all to you guys, but it's his age.
We would like.
I'm not the handy right now.
Can you hear me? Okay. Can Andy handle?
Andy can get me something.
We would like a lawyer present from here on out. Okay. And there's no disrespect to you guys. Okay. It's just, we don't, I don't want to hear on this one. I only see this stuff on TV at school.
All I know is they're talking to counselor about that, he talked to me, and we went down there, and that's all it's about. And he didn't seem worried about it, and he said he was more welcome to stay at school, or he could go home, and I really wish we
would have taken
go home.
For the time being, then he's been arrested, he's maybe go to, either jail or insurance village for a short time. So we're going to talk to him. So, that's where we're at.
Any medical conditions, any mental conditions we need to be aware of?
Especially if anxiety or something, maybe there's something he's going
Do you have any meds or anything like that that you have at home that we might need to bring through? No meds, no, is there no treatment for mental health, anything like that?
Give me 1 second, I know we have some time tomorrow, there's a lot of stuff we have to ask them, as far as just like meeting and that kind of stuff, I want to let one of you guys go with us.
Alright.
Yeah, I'm gonna grab. Alright, so give me 1 minute to look at the form, I'll do that.
There's. Oh yeah. I'm sure so, the same. With law or anything?
Nothing.
Surveys suspended?
No,
Nothing.
You're not even
Great. I mean, mediocre grades, I mean, they're up and down, you know, but.
Exactly. I found out I get Ian down to last night, I got
No, a grade, we were talking about his grade,
I got last one last night.
I'm sorry, his what?
It's great.
Grades.
It's down in geometry. And I got into them. And I was put on those.
Actually, you he's gonna be safe, okay? He's not hurt at all. I think it's gonna get worse for his but at this point right now, it's all pretty fresh. We don't know. They say that many people are hurt. Anybody's died, we don't know. At this point. Family members, we should check in, and family members that may be concerned about this, you agree, any family members that you want to hurt? Well, I mean, she's got an aunt, uncle. I mean, he's just fine, it's no school. was asked about last night. We talked about his grades, told him, like, listen, this is not good, drop it. They should have, uncompleted assignments with all the money they get. It's not great.
My God, that sounds good.
And on social media,
Not Facebook, Instagram.
yes,
This is the part where you see James just doing the stare down at the camera, right at the camera we're looking at.
They were empty, the gun was empty, and bullets were in a completely different place. How many rounds was there? I don't remember. No. You guys bought everything you must have shooting.
He bought 200.
I thought it was just a hospital.
Oh,
No, he didn't.
I don't know.
It wasn't an exorbitant amount of money, because you would have known.
$56.
Okay, then he only bought 100 rounds. And so you guys spent 50. So, yeah, we go to the shooting range all the time. He goes to the fields. He does, yes. I'm trying to teach him safety. Yeah, I mean,
It was not how they did it together, sure. Still not gonna make anything out of it.
he's a juvenile, they won't do that. Don't even play with that. He's a juvenile, they won't release him. I know my partner, but James Robert is.
I can hear lots of paper shuffling in that courtroom.
But I tried calling him and telling him those murder cases tomorrow right now. I don't.
Jennifer Lynn.
Everything has stopped. It's happened again where every feed has stopped in this trial. Oh my goodness gracious. What the heck is going on? Yeah. Let's see if this one works. No, every single feed that I'm checking is stuck. It happened this morning too. They've been having technical difficulties in that courtroom. And it's only 1:42. And what they've had a tendency to do is say, all right, we're having technical difficulties. We're leaving for the day. I'm just, yeah. And now they've just switched off. All right. You know what? Let's look at this one.
And we all fall short of the glory of God. I am so glad that's not my job.
This is the bar
I
fight
pray
murder
that God
trial.
would give comfort to anyone that is still mourning the death of Timothy. I would like to thank the court and the prosecution for their time
Oh, this
and
is
for
the
the amazing hard
Okay.
work.
Sorry, we're coming in pretty late on that. Sorry. Yeah, good times, good times. If they don't come back soon, I'm probably just going to ditch this entire effort. So many, so very many technical issues. Yeah, pretty frustrating. And I'm trying to find... Huh. Well, what I was going to do is find somebody else. Yeah, maybe they'll come back. I was going to try to find something else to watch, but, you know, we've been here for almost 4 hours. And I think we could all use a break. So I'm going to end this stream, and I will make a game time decision if and when they come back, whether I go live again. So thank you all for being here. Please hit the thumbs up. If you're not already a member, consider becoming a member. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will catch you next time. And have a great weekend. If I don't see you this weekend, I will also make a game time decision as to whether to continue streaming this particular trial. It seems like we are just kind of rehashing all the same information that we learned before. But feel free to make, your voices known as to whether you want me to continue streaming this trial or a different trial, or just maybe making commentary on things that have already happened. All right. I will see you all around soon. Thanks for being here. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.